Part 247. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2467. Not only Suya could hear this sound, but Jia-11 on the side could also hear it. After protecting the princess, the owner of the power suddenly shouted to Jia-11, "Mr. Jia-11, you have subspace ability, right? Quickly enter the subspace to escape. The strength of the coming one is astonishing. We are afraid that it will be more difficult for you. Try to escape as deep into the subspace as possible, you might still have a chance to escape successfully, hurry." After saying this, a large group of merchant ships behind them, which were originally loaded with cargo, were completely disorganized by the huge creature that suddenly appeared, one slap at a time. Even the strong man who came through the message didn't seem to expect that the terrifying creature that was coming was so powerful, and his words were stagnant. "This merchant ship of yours should have a small speeding escape boat, right? Go quickly." On the other hand, Jia-11's expression changed slightly when she saw this scene, but she quickly calmed down. Although many people on the merchant ship are important, even the lives of ordinary people are valuable, but in comparison, their lives are more valuable, or it should be said that Suya, the imperial princess, is more valuable and has more great value. So she must leave and protect her own life so that she can save the lives of more ordinary people. As for Jia-11, I haven't seen him possess subdimensional abilities. Even from Suya's or other people's perspective, Jia-11's subdimensional abilities, even if coupled with the family's protection methods, may not be able to resist the monsters that are chasing him. But Jia-11 himself, but I don't think so. As a result, Jia-11 remained calm and composed in such a crisis, and her action plan was all about rescuing Suya. Bang! That huge beast creature was an unspeakably terrifying monster to the life within Orion's arms. While feeling the turbulence of energy, Suya rushed towards the emergency escape boat of the merchant ship mothership, without forgetting to mutter, "Where did this strong man come from? Where did this strong man come from? How dare they enter our Orion arm? My little princess, is this the time to think about this? You should run away quickly, and the answer to this kind of thing is not obvious. With such a powerful person entering our Orion arm, besides starting a war, do you think there is anything else? Possibility." Jia-11 beside her sneered jokingly. Both of them obviously have heaven-level strength. Although Suya is a small level weaker than Jia-11, they both look like seniors and juniors with a huge gap. Jia-11 is calm and composed in this crisis. It was in sharp contrast to Suya's panic. "Why aren't you afraid at all?" While talking, both of them had arrived at the escape boat, where staff had urgently arranged an escape boat for Suya. The escape boat can only seat 2 people. When Suya took it for granted that Jia-11 would be riding on the super-fast escape boat with her, Jia-11 took half a step back and let the maid who had been accompanying Suya get on the boat. "Jia-11, what's wrong with you?" Suya was stunned, and many people around her who knew Jia-11's identity were also stunned, and the maid even wanted to say something. "I'm not from your empire. In this case, I won't occupy your resources. Besides, I also have my own way of escape. Stop talking and leave quickly." Jia-11 smiled and pretended to be in front of the girl. "It's up to you. If he doesn't want to come quickly and follow me." Suya quickly called her closest maid to get on the boat. Compared to Jia-11, a nagging uninvited guest, she certainly preferred that the maid she spent time with day and night would survive. When the maid passed by Jia-11, she gave him a grateful look. Boom! At this moment, more than half of the dozens of merchant ships had been destroyed by the behemoth, and when he destroyed a large merchant ship, he had already seen the merchant ship mothership guarded by all the merchant ships. "Stop it!" Inside the mothership, a voice as cold as ice roared suddenly, and then a figure that looked like an imperial man jumped out of the merchant ship. There are some strong men in the empire, but a few decades ago, the strongest men in this empire were only at less than half a star level, so they were quite weak. During this trip, it seemed that Suya was also a member of the royal family, but her status was definitely not as good as that of a prince who had the right to inherit the throne, so the powerful men sent were just two venerables. You must know that this empire has extremely deep foundations and has accumulated it to a certain extent. What it lacked a few decades ago was just communication with the outside world. After the Orion arm was able to communicate and trade with the outside world, a large number of combat skills and training skills, as well as higher-end training resources from the outside world, flowed into the empire, making the empire develop by leaps and bounds, and a large number of venerables emerged. And Suya was traveling at the border, and she was also traveling with a mission. She was only assigned 2 venerables. This was excessive and full of discrimination. But no matter what, at least one of the 2 venerables had the courage to block the 10-kilometer-long creature when it set its sights on the merchant ship mothership. This shows that this strong man is loyal. It is unknown why the other one did not appear, but this venerable level warrior did divert the behemoth's attention. Oh! There is such a powerful man in this Orion-backed empire. It's a pity that he is just a venerable man, tisk tisk. The behemoth attracted the attention of the venerable, and then he snorted coldly and used his power calmly. Puff. This venerable man originally thought that as long as he risked his life, even if he fought for a few seconds, it would be a good thing, but he overestimated his own strength. As soon as the brainwave power passed by, the venerable emperor of the empire was squeezed until he was covered in blood, his bones were shattered inch by inch, and his internal organs were completely destroyed as he roared. Died. A high-ranking figure who was ranked among the top 3 to 500 powerful men in the empire died in such an understatement in such a small task. To be honest, it is unknown whether the emperor would be willing to send him to protect his princess if he knew that this venerable man would die, because he gave birth to so many sons and daughters that he would sometimes mix up their names. So the emperor might not be willing to sacrifice one of the empire's most high-end combat capabilities for an ordinary princess. This time the 2 venerables will travel together to give Suya some bargaining chips, just to negotiate with the small border merchants in the next star field. Only small businessmen would be afraid of the strength of the venerable level. If a big shot from the neighboring star field appeared on the scene, the empire would probably go to Earth to call the Geo family to support the scene. Call out. At this moment, this powerful alien monster with unknown strength saw an extremely fast escape boat rushing out of the so-called Empire Caravan mothership that was about the same size as himself. This escape boat was so small that one of his eyelashes was probably thicker than it. But its escape was quite fast, so fast that even the creature could barely keep up with the speed of the escape boat in the blink of an eye. Hey, so-called little princess, right? Don't even think about escaping. The monster sneered and slapped the escape boat. You know, he is a 10-kilometer-long monster. He stretched out his palm and was so fast that he caught up with the escape boat in an instant, and then he tried to catch the escape boat in front of countless pairs of horrified eyes around him. Alien monster, don't you think that a member of the Geo family of Earth is more valuable than an unknown princess of the Empire? Now this Geo family is right in front of you. This is a great achievement. But at this moment, a voice appeared in the vacuum of the universe, and the owner of the voice seemed to have difficulty speaking with brainwave power, so he used all his strength. The pursuit ceased. No matter how quiet the voice was, as a first-level star expert, how could he not hear it? Especially the word Geo family made him stop the pursuit involuntarily. To many powerful people around the Orion arm, the Geo family is definitely more famous than the Imperial family. If it weren't for the Earth Alliance, they might have already invaded the Orion arm. And the Earth Alliance relies on the Geo family. Of course, the Geo family is not that magical, nor is it so great that even many powerful people around it dare not move. At best, this family only has one person who is suspected of being a star. Although it is strong, it is impossible to defeat one by one. Being able to beat the stars of the outside world is a questionable matter. What's scary about the Geo family is that behind their strongest man, there may be a giant Mosquito clan supporting him. Of course, there are many rumors saying that there is actually only one giant Mosquito in the family, a giant Mosquito with extremely amazing talents. Moreover, the giant Mosquito inexplicably regarded the Geo family as his relatives, so he protected the Geo family. In short, the name of the Geo family is extremely terrifying even to the powerful people from the outside world, even if it is not the civilized people within Orion's arms. So when he sensitively heard what the Geo family said, he immediately gave up the pursuit of the imperial princess. Anyway, for him, if he really wanted to pursue her, he could still catch up with the escape boat. Just wait a little longer. Who? Subspace talent. When this 10-kilometer level warrior of the first level of the star turned around and looked around, he finally discovered that there were ripples in the subspace, and his expression suddenly became solemn. You must know that the subspace talent is exactly the ability that the giant Mosquito has, and Jia Yan of the Geo family also has this talent. There are many rumors that Jia Yan is the clone of the giant Mosquito. So when he suddenly saw a creature claiming to be from the Geo family, he also used his subdimensional talent, and had to ask him to connect the creature that appeared in this space with the giant Mosquito. No, it's just a starry sky level. After seeing clearly the tiny creature in the subspace that had used its space talent quite immaturely and could only move in the superficial space, he immediately rejected his idea that this creature was related to the giant Mosquito. Jia 11's palms were sweating at this moment. In one hand, he held the amulet that his elder, the strongest member of the Geo family, Jia Yan, had given him several years ago, and in the other hand, he held a weapon in the style of an ancient longsword on earth. This weapon is nothing but made of positive and negative forces. This is when Jia Yan returned last time, he used his vague concept of yin and yang Dao magic weapons to make weapons. Although they were very crude, they could be used by people on Earth and were already at the level of artifacts. Your Excellency, it doesn't have much impact on my identity whether I am a Starry Sky class or not. I am a Starry Sky class. Wouldn't it be easier for you to catch me? Jia 11 was as cold as ice and used her brainwave power to talk without fear. Yes, Jia 11, who seemed to only show his peak heaven level strength in front of Princess Suya, had been hiding his strength. In fact, Jia 11 has reached the Starry Sky level a few days ago. Although it is only the first time to enter the Starry Sky level, the so-called Starry Sky level is the level that can barely travel the universe with the physical body. The original Jia Yan started his interstellar adventure after reaching the Starry Sky level. The original Jia 11 was only at the peak of the heaven level, so at best he could only use his subspace talent to stay in the subspace for a short period of time, and then had to leave the subspace to breathe oxygen and cultivate himself. But after reaching the Starry Sky level, he has been able to move in subspace and the vacuum of the normal universe for a long time. The distance between the two sides is less than 100 kilometers. For people on Earth, 100 kilometers is far enough, but for a star-level powerhouse that is 10 kilometers long, 100 kilometers is really nothing. Are you from the Geo family? Yes, your life fluctuations are very young, but you have subdimensional abilities. This is a bit like being inherited from the elders of your family. When it comes to her family, Jia 11 is no longer so cynical, but has a hint of seriousness in her eyes. My subdimensional abilities are naturally far behind those of my ancestors. You must be able to easily kill a powerful person like me. But, are you really sure of catching me? You must also know that our Geo family has a profound background, which is beyond the imagination of you outsiders. This star-level powerhouse had thoughts in his eyes. Jia 11 is right. The difficulty of the Geo family is that although they are all weak, the outside world's evaluation of them is still a bit difficult. The reason is that there was a robber fleet assigned by the outside world. A surprise attack was carried out on the female General Jia of the Jia family, who often appeared outside. No one knew that during that operation, there was a semi-star strong man from the outside mixed in, and such a strong man was simply a disaster for the Jia fleet at that time. It was something that was easily achieved, but everyone knew the final result. The half-star powerhouse died in the sneak attack. Not even a single person in the fleet that attacked him could escape alive. This makes others understand that even if the Jia family is just a weak person traveling, it may not be that easy to deal with. We can't imagine it. It's just that this first-level star expert gave a cold smile after thinking about it for a while. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2468. Half-star level is just half-star level. As a serious star-level being, he did not believe that there was any way to remotely protect any member of the Jia family. Even if there were, it would certainly not be able to withstand a truly stellar attack. Because he is a star, looking at all the surrounding star fields, except for a few supreme galaxy-level powerful people, he is almost invincible. If there is any strong person who can remotely protect starry sky-level beings from even star-level beings, then how strong would such a strong person be? He couldn't even imagine it, so he didn't think such a strong person could really exist. Haha, Jia family, right? You will feel desperate for your previous wrong remarks. I will capture you first, then capture the Imperial Princess, and then drive straight in and destroy your Orion arm directly. This time, there are powerful beings behind you, but the giant Mosquito clan can no longer help you. Boom. That star-level powerhouse has reached a height of 10 kilometers. To him, the magical subspace talent is nothing at all. Especially the weakling in front of him, whose strength is only the starry sky level, or the kind that has just been promoted to the starry sky level. For him, with such strength, no matter whether you have a subspace talent or some heaven-defying talent, it is useless in his eyes. Showing such a shallow subdimensional ability in front of my eyes. You're looking for death. He won't really kill this Jia family member. He just uses his brainwave power to sweep away and feels that he can control the other party. Is it the protection of the Jia family? Hee, I would like to see if the protection methods of your Jia family are still useful. Last time we were able to deal with a half-star level enemy. This time we come to a real star level. He smiled fiercely, and the power of his brainwaves surged to the surface of the subspace where Jia 11 was, like a sheet of water. Moreover, this power was so fast that a star like Jia 11 didn't even have time to react. In other words, Jia 11 could only watch and could not escape. But at this important moment, the expression of the stellar powerhouse changed slightly. Because he saw through the surface of subspace and saw Jia 11 who was staying on the surface, her face was as usual, without the slightest fear. Aren't you afraid of death? Or are you so confident in the so-called means of protection? Ha ha ha, poor earthlings, they can't even understand the difference in strength between strong people. In the world, no matter how strong a strong person is, he can resist it from a distance. Is it possible to live with a star-level combat power? It's simply impossible. His brainwave power continued to increase input, ensuring that he would capture the young man suspected of being a Jia family member in one fell swoop without killing him with one blow. Boom. Boom boom boom. In the sky, salutes were blooming. This year, it's time for the All-Union program to celebrate the liberation of the Earth. Look, how loud the salute is. The leaders of various civilizations attending the meeting, accompanied by the leaders of the Earth Alliance, listened to the history of the Earth Alliance's sufferings and their own in the history of redemption. The Empire's ambassador to the Earth Alliance for this festival gave a speech. What he said was to the effect that he was heartbroken by what happened to the people of Earth more than 90 years ago, and at the same time he also felt more deeply that the people of Earth could survive in such a situation. It is not easy to regroup and develop the economy and people's livelihood in a short period of time. In the days to come, the Empire will adhere to the same method as before and work side by side with the Earth Alliance to create a better future for both civilizations. A TV host, wearing a spacesuit, was flying around in the sky, pointing at the warships, diplomatic ships, and powerful men coming and going in the sky and making introductions. It's just that many viewers always feel a little familiar after listening to many of the words and pictures. Why? Because the 90th anniversary a few years ago seemed to be played in the same way. The general things were similar. What is exaggerated is that many alien civilizations used similar diplomatic rhetoric, changing the soup without changing the medicine. After all, it was such an emergency to do it again. Not only the Earthlings themselves were not prepared, but the alien civilization was not prepared either. They came in a hurry after being called. There was no time to prepare, so they had to get the last draft and make some changes. Read it directly. Everyone was embarrassed. Alien civilizations are not so comfortable. Because the people on Earth really went too far this time. During the 90th anniversary a few years ago, everyone already felt uncomfortable coming here. Some civilizations were so poor that they didn't have the capital to set up diplomatic missions on Earth. Last time, as a sign of sincerity, they moved from a few light years or even dozens to hundreds of light years. It's only been a few years since we came here. There are envoys from distant civilizations who are still on their way back, but the people on Earth say they want to do it again. They couldn't come, so they could only send a congratulatory message. Those who can come are also very expensive. Therefore, many civilizations only think that the Earth is too floating. They don't talk about whether the people on Earth are wasting their own money to engage in such a big activity and it is a waste of people's livelihood. They only think that they have to run back and forth. With the influence of the Earth Alliance gradually declining, is it also making the civilization that was originally friendly to the Earth Alliance become less friendly to the Earth civilization? Anyway, at the beginning of this festival, the Imperial Envoy was the one who laughed the most happily. As for this smile, it is unclear whether he is laughing at the Earth Alliance for reducing its influence, or whether he is sincerely laughing at the Earth Alliance's celebrations. In short, at this grand event, all parties actually had various thoughts, but the people on Earth at the bottom did not understand. They only thought that the Alliance had held another large-scale event, and that the status of their own Earth civilization had once again improved. Woolen cloth. Boom. Boom boom boom. In the starry sky, a large number of salutes and fireworks have begun to be in line with interstellar civilization. In the past, the Earth Alliance did all this by itself. Then after seeing the traditions and various formal concepts in interstellar civilization, we understood that formality should be how to do it. In short, in this kind of grand event, more and more formal concepts are used. Halfway through the festival, although the salute seemed to be finished, there was still a large amount of ammunition left in all the starry sky cannon carriages, and the salute came to an abrupt end. The envoys from all major civilizations were all astonished, and most of the people on Earth were also extremely weird. Is this a new incident? Don't want to continue? Or is this event the end of the road? That's a big problem. You must know that the Earth civilization is a civilization with rudimentary scientific capabilities, but its status is too high. Such an internationally embarrassing incident will affect all aspects of the problem. It shouldn't have happened. Even if the civilization level of Earth civilization is low, such a mission definitely requires a lot of rehearsals in advance. I didn't expect that it would actually happen on the same day. The messenger of the Empire was an extremely handsome man. His face was already smiling, but when he saw the salute of the Earth Alliance in the starry sky actually being fired in front of countless people, he instantly showed an expression that made him want to laugh even more. Fortunately, he understood that he was the face of the Empire, and it would not be good to be caught. So he endured his laughing expression, but it was quite hard to endure it. The more the Earth goes downhill, the greater the chances of their empire. But now, even holding an event has to be shut down. There are so many alien civilizations that originally turned to the Earth. After seeing this, they will still want to follow this trend. Is it a civilization that can't even organize events? He promised that his empire was not doing any tricks behind the scenes. If such tricks were discovered, there would be constant troubles in the future. As for whether other civilizations were involved, he didn't know. In short, it had nothing to do with the empire. And it seems that the problem is really caused by the people on Earth themselves. That's why I said that a civilization that only relies on one strong person really has nothing to rely on. Even if they stole the show in the previous war, in normal times, the competition is about overall ability. A weak civilization like the Earth civilization, what kind of leadership ability can they have? For so many years, they have only relied on finance and currency to suck the blood of the Orion arm. Why do we suck the blood of such a civilization in vain? The imperial envoy sneered in his heart. He was already planning to visit some civilized envoys who had criticized the Earth in the future. In this way, there might be another alliance against the Earth in the future. A strong man? But that strong man is really strong. Even if he wants to cause trouble, he will try not to use force. Well, the most terrifying thing is that there is a giant Mosquito clan behind the strong man to help, so we can, judging from the information we received, there is probably only one giant Mosquito, but his strength has improved too fast. Now that he has not appeared for so many years, he may have reached another level, so even if we do something, we can only do something small. Fancy, if the Earth's own capabilities are not good enough, we can't be blamed for this. The imperial envoy thought of the strongest man on Earth, Jia Yan, and his heart surged. Last time, the empire's diplomatic envoy only acted rampantly on the Earth, and then he was quickly captured and sentenced by the empire. As the new successor, he will naturally not make the same mistake again. As for why it is so easy to be caught, the reason is very simple. Although the Earth does not seem to be strong as a whole, and there are very few strong people, there are Jia Yan and giant mosquitoes behind them. Fortunately, not only the giant mosquitoes, but also the Earth Jia Yan have rarely appeared on the Earth in recent years. This is also the reason why the status of Earth people has declined very quickly recently. I don't need them not to appear all the time, as long as it takes another 10 years, the decline of the Earth status has become a certainty, and even the status of currency and finance will lose a lot if they show up again. They can't force the civilization that uses our empire's currency to use the Earth's currency again, right? A strong person is strong, but to be strong, you must also be reasonable, because domineering means that you cannot manage a star field well. You must operate it rationally, otherwise it is doomed to not operate well. This is probably even if there are very few strong people, there is no way to use it. Problem solved by strength. Therefore, as long as the status of the people of the Earth continues to decline, and in the future his empire will use the method of secretly crossing Chenkang to remove the currency status of the Earth, then even if Jia Yan and the giant mosquito appear again, it will not affect the possibility of the empire rising again and becoming the boss of the Orion arm. At most, the Earth Alliance will be given a symbolic boss status, and the empire will influence them all, and the two powerful people will have nothing to say. His voice was also the voice of many civilized messengers present. The messengers who come to Earth to participate in the festival may seem friendly, but there are many who have evil intentions. This is called diplomacy. While many messengers were ridiculing the Earthlings for their failure. Boom! Once again, the salute gun carriage suddenly fired a welcoming number somewhere in the starry sky. The entire starry sky was illuminated. And in this illuminated starry sky, a crack suddenly opened. What happened? What are the people on Earth doing? Also, is this crack a subspace crack? How is it possible? Such a big crack? 1,000 kilometers? No, 2,000 kilometers? No. It seems like more than 10,000 kilometers? This. A crack that can fit the entire Earth into it? This is definitely a natural disaster in the universe. It's over. The Earth is going to be over. Not only the Earth, we will be over too if we don't escape. In an instant, the entire envoy group, as well as the ordinary people on Earth who were watching, were shocked. This is just a subspace crack that appears in the starry sky, but even on the Earth tens of thousands of kilometers away, people facing the festive sky in the starry sky can see it with the naked eye. In the distance of the blue sky, the starry sky is covered with a huge crack was torn out. The whole Earth is going to be in chaos. This is a huge 10,000-kilometer rift in subspace. Although it has not yet completely stabilized, you can tell from this situation that if it moves to the Earth, it may swallow the entire Earth into subspace in an instant. It is the crisis of the entire destruction of the Earth. This is no longer something that can be accomplished by humans. At least in the starry sky around the Orion Arm, I have never heard of any strong person who can do such a devastating thing. In other words, there is a high probability that this is a natural event. Civilization is torn apart in subspace. It is not impossible to even destroy an entire star field. There are many records circulated among the many star field lords in the surrounding area, which shows that such incidents are not uncommon. Run away. The people on Earth don't care. We can't protect ourselves. The Imperial envoy was frightened. Although he was a venerable being, facing such destruction, he was just a little grasshopper drifting with the tide. Being dragged into the subspace, he felt that he would definitely die. Lose. Many civilized envoys on one side are also urging their warships or envoys to use all their strength to escape from the starry sky. However, just when this group of envoys and the people on Earth were all terrified, the Supreme Commander of Earth civilization, the old man who has served as the president of the Earth Alliance for decades, suddenly used his extremely familiar voice to stabilize the entire situation in this seemingly earth-shattering scene. On behalf of the president of the Earth Alliance, on behalf of the entire Orion Arm civilization, and on behalf of all the people of all civilizations who have been saved, I welcome the arrival of Lord Giant Mosquito. Boom. As he finished speaking these words, the subspace suddenly tore apart even more hugely. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2469. Huge cracks opened on the surface of subspace. No, it was no longer a crack, but after the loud noise, the crack suddenly enlarged and expanded into a round terrifying hole at an extremely terrifying speed. Inside the hollow, there is a black color that is distorted and deformed in a prohibitive pattern. This is the subspace. It is probably the first and last time for countless people to see its true face. What's even more frightening is that inside this circular super-large subspace that is more than 10,000 kilometers long, a super-large building that cannot be described in words, extremely majestic, appears here. That's a palace. A huge palace that makes one's breath stop at the sight of it. Or it should be said that huge cannot describe its size, because any adjective for this kind of size is pale and feeble. The cracks are tens of thousands of kilometers long, but they are about the same size as this palace. Because it is basically tens of thousands of kilometers long. A palace 10,000 kilometers in size. Even in front of the Earth, this is not much smaller. This. What's this? Oh my God. What ghost did I see? A palace as big as a planet. This kind of thing can't exist. It's physically impossible. This. What exactly is this? Everyone, including humans on this side of the Earth, saw this huge palace emerging from subspace. They were all stunned, as if they had seen something that subverted their cognitive views. Too big. So big. It's like a palace as big as the Earth appeared next to the Earth. This is something that is simply unimaginable. It's no wonder that everyone is shocked, because such a huge object is impossible for ordinary people to imagine, not even for scientists or strong people. No way. This is definitely some kind of projection technology. The Imperial ambassador's face changed wildly. He didn't believe that this was a real thing. People on Earth don't understand whether such a thing is possible, but as an ambassador of a higher civilization and a powerful person at the level of venerables, he understands that such an object is essentially unlikely to exist. This kind of technology should not be something that normal physical laws should have. Even if it were possible, it would definitely be possible with unimaginable technology and resources. And deep down in his heart, in addition to being shocked, there is another reason, that is, he cannot imagine that such a thing will appear on the Earth, because no matter what it is, as long as it is not detrimental to the Earth in the first place, then the emergence of such a thing, the body, is definitely an influence that the Earth has that can't be added. In addition, what the President of Earth said just now flashed in his mind. Welcome, Mr. Giant Mosquito. Could it be possible? Maybe. This one is a giant mosquito. Mosquito ancestor. Boom 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 boom. When everyone was shocked by the sudden appearance of the palace and could not speak to themselves for a long time, the super huge palace on the surface of the subspace was like an elegant giant. It seemed slow, but in fact it was extremely fast. Break away from the subspace. At such a huge level, you can see that it can move, which means that its moving speed is absolutely terrifying and unimaginable. Just like this giant palace, it appeared slowly, but if we use the speed of the Earth to describe it, then it travels hundreds of thousands of kilometers per second. It took more than 10 or 20 seconds to appear outside the subspace. Clang. The huge palace appeared in the normal space, and the distortion and fantasy feeling just now completely disappeared, allowing countless people who fantasized that it might be a projection to give up their previous wishful thinking. Including the Imperial ambassador. Now he laughed sadly and desperately. This palace is not an illusionary projection technology, but something that actually exists. To him, this was completely unimaginable. That's right, today's so-called festival ceremony should have been prepared in the first place. Which civilization would spend so much time to celebrate a festival that celebrates its 90th anniversary? It seems that the battle is even more exaggerated than the 90th anniversary. I finally understand why. The Imperial ambassador no longer thought about it so much. Instead, like everyone else, he looked up at the super palace that appeared outside the subspace and was closer to them, probably about 10,000 kilometers away. Yes, 10,000 kilometers is already considered near. Because the palace is so big that even if it is thousands of kilometers away, it seems to be right in front of you. The pillars that are 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers high and hundreds of kilometers thick, as well as the decorations on the palace that are several kilometers or even hundreds of kilometers long, and the gates that are more than 2,000 kilometers high and wide, all show that, the grandeur and terror of this palace. This is in the Orion Arm, no, it is in dozens or even hundreds of surrounding star fields. A terrifying giant building that has never appeared in history. Perhaps from today on, the image and majesty of this palace will be it became like an urban legend and spread to countless places around. There is no need for the owner of the palace to show up, the mere existence of the palace is enough to make people admire and fear. No one can imagine what level of power the owner of such a palace would be. The president of the Earth Alliance was probably startled by what he welcomed, until the huge building appeared in this ordinary space, docking steadily in the space, but it was not affected by its own gravity. He only came back to his senses after the effect brought great disaster to the Earth and the little moon not far away. He finally understood why Master Jiayan told him not to be too shocked when telling him about this mission, but to act accordingly whenever he saw any situation that could make his heart stop beating. The promised process is to meet the giant Mosquito-sama. Welcome the Supreme Mosquito. As the President of the Earth Alliance, I would like to express my sincere greetings to the Supreme Mosquito on behalf of all the people of the Earth. Boom. These few words made the hearts of all those who listened skip a beat. Giant Mosquito Supreme. Not the Mosquito Ancestor? Why is there another Supreme? The President of the Earth Alliance also felt strange when he said the above words. Because based on the information that he and many other civilizations secretly grasped, it seemed that there was only one giant mosquito from beginning to end, and all the genes matched it. But he went from being a giant mosquito at the beginning, to being an ancestor of mosquitoes, and now he is the giant mosquito supreme. City people really know how to play. Of course, every change is due to an exaggerated change in its body shape, so I'm afraid this giant mosquito can't do anything about it. How old was the mosquito ancestor who appeared on Earth before? It is only a few hundred meters in size and difficult to reach even 1 kilometer. But the palace, which is as large as 10,000 kilometers, is already foreshadowing that the Supreme who will appear later will definitely not be the mosquito ancestor from last time. Otherwise, let alone a creature several hundred meters in size, how could it control such a huge palace? Even its temperament would not match it. Therefore, everyone, including the President of the Earth Alliance, looked at the majestic palace with great anticipation. Everyone's blood was about to coagulate, and no one dared to make too much noise. Creak. Although there was no sound in the vacuum, when the palace gate, which was more than 2,000 kilometers wide, slowly opened a gap, people heard this ethereal voice that seemed to come from ancient times. If the energy is large enough, it can naturally form a sound. Even if it is not a real sound, it can shake the minds of living creatures and make them misunderstand that it is a sound. This is exactly the case at this moment. Creak, creak, creak. The appearance of this voice, just like the sound of a wooden door opening, makes people feel extremely shaken, as if they have the urge to kneel down. As the sound appeared, a large amount of energy seemed to be released in the palace towards the outside world. What kind of energy is this? It's so comfortable. I feel like I can advance quickly if I practice under this power. My God, the power flowing out from the palace gate can make the power in my body ready to move. What? The energy concentration around the entire Earth has increased? Then in the future, wouldn't this area of the Earth become a natural holy land for cultivation? Just during the time when the door was opened, the cosmic power in the palace made the energy density in the vast space where the Earth is located become thicker. With this change, the Earth will become the strongest natural holy land for cultivation nearby for a long time to come. That's not all. After the door is fully opened, even more powerful energy is released inside. Buzz. The Earth seems to be shrouded in an invisible shield, and the energy level has increased to a certain level. If anyone has been to the central star field of the Milky Way, they will understand that this energy concentration is almost close to the level at the edge of the central star field of the Milky Way. Although there is still a little difference, it is not much different. Even if the concentration of this power will dissipate very soon in the future, it will still be easy to maintain it for 180 years. Even after the most intense days have passed, the Earth may be in the next 10,000 years. Maintaining a certain energy-filled high point for such a long time is enough to cultivate a large number of strong men. Just by opening a door, the entire Earth benefits. Such a generous act is simply jaw-dropping. After opening the door, everyone looked inside the palace. The palace is indeed an extremely huge space, and behind the long corridor of the palace, there is a throne like a high platform. On the throne, there is indeed a giant black mosquito-like creature, crawling lazily here. Giant mosquito. They are really a clan of giant mosquitoes. It's just that this giant mosquito family is simply not the same species as the giant mosquito that was revealed in front of the Orion arm creature before. Big. It's really big again. The size matches these thousands of miles. 50 kilometers of huge. You know, the mosquito ancestor that appeared in Orion's arm was only a few hundred meters away. But now the Supreme who has appeared again has actually not evolved to 1 kilometer or 5 kilometers, but has soared to 50 kilometers. What is this concept? Just like human beings, ordinary normal people can grow to 1.34 meters, and some can grow to 2.23 meters. If it's less than or more than that, it's abnormal. From this concept, it is like a group of earthlings who are between 1 and 2 meters tall, and a person who grows to 100 meters tall suddenly appears. Isn't it scary? No one knew that the so-called giant mosquito clan could actually have such upper and lower limits. Another one, after seeing this crawling and lazy giant mosquito, doubts suddenly emerged in everyone's heart, since the body is so much bigger than the mosquito ancestor, and the mosquito ancestor has already covered the entire Orion arm, and even many surrounding stars. The giant mosquito, a monster that is dozens and hundreds of times larger than the mosquito, has a strength that no one in the world dares to provoke. Is the strength also increased by dozens or hundreds of times? If this is really the case, how powerful he must be. Fear. Fear. Pressure. Amazing pressure. Everything, including the huge body of the giant mosquito, the vastness of the palace, and the sudden filling of the earth and its surroundings, making the entire environment become an atmosphere similar to that of the palace, all without saying a word, it created extremely terrifying pressure. It seems that there is no need to say or see, everyone understands that the so-called giant mosquito supreme who is coming is an extremely terrifying and powerful person in the sky and on the earth. He is so terrifying that even within the arms of Orion, he may not be able to find an opponent in the many large and small star fields around him. No wonder, this giant mosquito can be called supreme. Because he is really supreme. Suddenly, when everyone in the outside world saw clearly the image of the giant mosquito inside the palace, the giant mosquito raised its head slightly. It was like a planet had moved. People on Earth, thank you for welcoming me. I am the supreme power of the giant mosquito clan. Giant mosquito supreme. Well, let's call him Jia Yan. Jia Yan raised his head silently, looking at the team in front of him and the earth behind him. To be honest, he originally thought that he could use his real body to see the earth and the scenery around it, and should be similar to what the clone sees. Unexpectedly, the clone's view of the earth has not changed much. But now that the real body of this strength has arrived, after seeing the earth and the welcoming team that he thought was extremely large before, it gives him a feeling of little family. Really, there were so many ships and people in the welcoming team, maybe all of them were not as big as the doorknob of his palace door. As for the earth, it is about the same size as the palace where I live. Don't you think this is petty? I really feel a bit petty. Jia Yan didn't even expect that just by opening the door, the energy in this palace from the central star field of the Milky Way would be spread to all directions, benefiting the entire surrounding Earth. Yes, he thought that his appearance would be very popular, but he never thought that such an appearance would benefit the Earth. It's really because the environment here in the Orion Arm is so different from that in the central star field of the Milky Way. However, Jia Yan only sighed for a moment. After sighing, he saw a calm figure standing next to the president in the middle of the welcoming team. He flew away with the two figures beside him. Stand up. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 2470. Naturally, Jia Yan knew who the flying figure was. In fact, one of the three figures was none other than himself. To be precise, it is his own clone. One of the three shadows that came was Jia Yan's clone. Oh no, it should be said that this is Jia Yan, at least the Jia Yan known to the public around the Orion arm. But his true form is just the supreme of the giant Mosquito clan. Jia Yan silently shook his body, and his body, which was many times taller than the mountains, stood up from the high platform of the palace. When it comes to acting, you have to do enough. Who? In the vacuum of the universe, the other two figures led by Jia Yan's avatar are his wife Satsumakan and his youngest daughter Jia Makiao. Don't be afraid, Dad will keep you alive in space. While Jia Yan's clone was flying, he smiled gently at his daughter. Well, Jiao'er is not afraid. Jiao'er behaved well and nodded. The fear in his eyes was not so much for the vacuum of the universe, but for the majestic palace that was slowly approaching and the supergiant creatures inside the palace. But as the flight accelerated, she was surprised to find that this creature that was so huge that when she raised her head, she couldn't even see the creature above her. It actually had a bit of a dad aura. She looked at her father in surprise, and then at the giant mosquito that had already looked at them with a smile in its eyes after entering the palace. The little girl was in a mess. If she hadn't recognized the man next to her as her father first, maybe she would have called this big mosquito father now, because it was really kind. But it was Satsumakan, Jia Yan's wife, who had followed Jia Yan all the way from the outer planet to the Earth and gave birth to a child without permission. She was also a powerful female creature who was now Jia Yan's nominal favorite. She saw Jia Yan's the real body became slightly silent. She has met her clones a lot, or should be said, not too many times, but at least it is much worse than meeting Jia Yan's real body again. Of course, regardless of the real body or the clone, she only knew that she liked this strong male creature. But what I never expected is that since the last time I said goodbye to Jia Yan's real body, looking back now, I will see that the real body has turned into such a terrifying super monster. A mosquito that was just a few meters or tens of meters long when we first met, grew into a giant behemoth 50 kilometers long before our eyes. This would be a shock to anyone. Jia Yan's real body also looked at the coming clone of himself, as well as his wife and children, and then thought about how he couldn't refuse his son Jiarong's arrival, and sighed softly. That's right, Jia Yan deliberately arranged so many things today. In fact, he wanted to give his wife and children a title. Unfortunately, his son refused to come, so he must still have some knots in his heart. Of course, Jia Yan didn't tell them that he was here to greet the giant mosquito. He hid this from everyone except the president and other commanders, in order to make it easier for all people on Earth, especially his wife and children. A surprise for us. Boom. When they arrived at the palace, even though Jia Yan's clone was still flying with his wife and daughters, the distance of thousands of kilometers was still a long way to fly. And when they came to the palace, for Jia Yan himself, even though they were thousands of kilometers away, it was still a very close distance. If the doppelgangers and his wife came in front of them, they could only see part of their bodies, because he is really too big. So he cloned himself about 500 kilometers away from his real body, stopped flying, and looked at the giant mosquito from a distance. Satsuma Temple, is it unexpected? I'm back in my true form this time. The clone turned back and said this to his wife with a smile. Satsuma was stunned for a while, and then nodded. I thought I would never see your true form in this life. I didn't expect that one day I would see you again, and you have already come this far. Jia Yan's real body suddenly moved and stretched out one of his front legs. Although it seemed slow to his huge body, the movement was several kilometers away, which frightened the man who was tightly pulling on the hem of Mama's skirt. Xiao Jiao almost cried. Don't be afraid. Jia Yan's clone quickly comforted his daughter, and at the same time, he knelt down and held the little girl's hand. The huge front feet are like terrifying pillars that reach straight into the sky. In front of the feet that are dozens of kilometers long, the front feet that creatures of the same level think are sharp are actually not as sharp as imagined. So the sharp front legs lowered down, and even stretched out gently to the little girl's head, covering the sky, and gently touched her head when she closed her eyes tightly, without causing any harm to the little girl. Any harm? Huh. Chiao was frightened for a while, but found that she was not injured, and the feeling of touching herself was quite warm. She opened her eyes involuntarily. "Good boy." A raging male voice sounded. This voice was very similar to her father's, but it was a little different, because the voice was full of majesty and incredible. Chiao raised his head in surprise and looked at the huge mountain-like object touching him, dumbfounded. "It seems like I understand something, but also like I don't understand anything." The outside world didn't know what they were talking about, but there were a large number of cameras recording the scene on the screen. The Earth Alliance only needs to use this experience to tell all outsiders that even the civilizations that are not within Orion's arms will stay away from the Earth Alliance, or can only have admiration, because the Earth Alliance can still invite such terrible people. Giant Mosquito, this is no longer an opponent that ordinary civilization dares to provoke. Yes, even if the giant mosquito only appears for a short time and only communicates with a few people, it can also indirectly change the Earth Alliance from its previous embarrassing situation of declining status to its previous status. No, it should said to be greater than before. Because it is only the protection of the mosquito ancestor, it is obvious which one is more intimidating compared with the current 50-kilometer-long giant mosquito supreme, whose strength is unknown. Jia Yan's real body whirled on his little daughter's head. Not to mention, the feeling of using the real body and the clone were completely different. If he hadn't returned in his true form, how could he have enjoyed such a feeling? After finishing talking to his daughter and seeing Xiao Jiao already giggling, Jia Yan turned his attention to his wife Satsuma Zen. Satsuma Kono walked forward quietly, hugged the tip of his forefoot with a smile, and closed his eyes, as if conveying something to Jia Yan's real body. After a long time, Satsuma stood aside with tears in his eyes. Jia Yan stepped forward and hugged his wife. "Everyone, today, I am not the protagonist. The protagonists are these people around me. Thank you very much for being invited to attend the wedding that my good friend Jia Yan has been delaying for many years. Now let the wedding go on." The next moment, the real body retracted his feet, and at the same time, the power of brain waves spread instantly. With a loud bang, all living things, including people on the earth, heard what he said. Boom. For a time, the guests who came to participate in this festival, as well as countless ordinary people in the Earth Alliance, and even many high-level people who planned this festival were all confused. Well, what's going on? We said it was a festival before, but then you, the supergiant mosquito, showed up. We thought this was a grand event to welcome you. But there are twists and turns, and you said yourself that the protagonist this time is not you, but these little figures around you. Are you playing with us? Of course, even those who are slanderous may not dare to say any unhappy words at this time. Besides, they were already frightened and confused. They just changed the theme at this time. Everyone knew that even if the theme changed to Jia Yan's wedding, the protagonist today would not change. It must be the coming superstar. Giant Mosquito. But even if everyone knows this, it doesn't stop Earthling Jia Yan, his beautiful wife, and the little girl beside his wife, who is definitely the fruit of their love, from becoming the center of attention. Satsumakan didn't expect that the reason why his true form showed up today was actually this. She covered her mouth, her surprise palpable. "Honey, I told you, I will give you a surprise and give you a formal title. I hope this title doesn't come too late." The giant mosquito made a sound that only Satsumaden could hear. Satsumakan cried with joy. How can I not give you a nod on such a wonderful day? Please come into my palace and sit down, Edisha, to welcome the guests. Okay. Edisha is happy to serve the master. When the giant mosquito raised its head and said these words in all directions, it seemed like it was raining light in the sky. The little mosquitoes of light and shadow transformed into thousands, maybe even hundreds of millions, flying around in the sky overwhelmingly. They teleported and quickly entered the messenger spaceships, tourist spacecrafts, and military warships present, as well as the yachts visiting the event, and respectfully extended invitations to everyone. In order to congratulate Sergei Yan on his wedding ceremony, my master sincerely invites you all to attend this grand event in your palace. I wonder if it is an honor to invite you into the palace. I have a good gift to return to you. Even on Earth, a large number of light spot mosquitoes have appeared. Although it is impossible to invite people from all over the world, at least tens of millions of random guests have been invited. As for the people on Earth who agreed to the invitation, they still didn't know how to get to the universe, and it was too late to book tickets now. But what they never expected was that when they agreed to the invitation, machines the size of humans would fly out of the subspace like dense bees, then open the hatch and invite the other party to enter. When people entered the hatch, the machine sank into the subspace, tearing apart the subspace in an instant, and then in less than 10 minutes, it reached the super-huge palace hall that was comparable to the Earth. Moreover, the hall already has a perfect environment, with pure oxygen and energy that is quite conducive to cultivation. Even some seriously ill patients who were invited felt that their bodies had recovered instantly when they came to the palace. These are all the great abilities of the giant mosquito supreme. Oh my God, my illness is cured. What kind of training environment is this? As soon as I came here, I discovered that my Earth-level strength was about to break through. This is probably heaven. It's as big as the Earth. It's easy to put a lot of moons in the palace. Such a big palace and its owner are simply unimaginably great. All the people who had been invited were standing dumbfounded in the center of the hall where they could not see the edge. Not only was it not crowded, but it also seemed extremely empty. This was when Edisha deliberately picked up people and arranged them in the same area. Otherwise, most of the average people inside would fly to death from exhaustion even if they had to fly around the hall to gather in one place. This place? Well, okay, Edisha admitted, it was just to save trouble and put all the ambassadors and humans who came in on a floor tile in the palace. But this piece of floor tile is more than 30 kilometers long and wide. Let alone tens of millions of people, even if 100 million people are thrown in, they might be able to stand on it. There are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of similar floor tiles in the palace. All the people who were quickly taken to the palace were frightened by the astonishing scene around them and the giant mosquito in the distance. Everyone was so shocked that they could not speak to themselves for a long time. Is this the palace you just saw? Although I knew it was big, you don't realize how big it is until you actually enter it. This is simply... Is that the Supreme Lord Giant Mosquito over there? My God, His Majesty is like a planet. I am a planet development expert. Do you understand what this flat ground under your feet and the well-developed palace represent? Even if this place is smaller than the Earth, if it is really developed and lived in, it can definitely fit in the Earth. 10 times or even 100 times the population. Oh my God. The air I smell is full of energy. I want to practice. I will practice here even if I die. The ambassadors of various civilizations, let alone pretending to be ambassadors at this time, were stunned by the majestic and magnificent scenery inside the palace and could not speak for a long time. Facing the previous giant mosquito ancestor, they could still imagine the horror of that existence, and they could even think of ways, such as uniting with strong men from the outside world to cause trouble for the giant mosquito ancestor. But the opponent is replaced by this unfathomable supergiant giant mosquito supreme. It's better to go to bed. This kind of inhuman existence is not even strong enough. If you fight with him, you won't die. Not to mention anything else, they thought that if this being could control the palace, just by making the palace crash into other powerful people, countless people could be killed. They even got angry and crashed the palace into other people's home planets, and the planet would be given to you. Smashed. This is still the power of the palace. As for the giant mosquito supreme that can control such a planet, I don't dare to think about it, because just thinking about it makes the hairs on my body stand on end, and I feel extremely scared when I think about it. Everyone, thank you for the support of the 13 million people present. I will give you a banquet immediately. In addition, please invite new people to appear. Jia Yan's giant mosquito true form now made a voice that spoke to more than 10 million people. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2471. Okay, guests, please taste the delicacies of my giant mosquito clan. At the right time, Adisha transformed into thousands of small mosquitoes of light and shadow, and small engineering robots were covered with gorgeous festive cloths, transporting various delicacies, and began to deliver them to the floor tiles. It is said to be a delicacy of the giant mosquito clan, but in fact it is nothing but the fruit of the big tree in the Edisha star, plus some powerful edible resources that Jia Yan found in the central star field and black hole area of the Milky Way, making it just a delicious meal. It has to be said that the resources in Jia Yan's hands are really huge. They are so many that he can easily feed everyone in the entire Earth Alliance. This meal that caters to more than 10 million people is a drop in the bucket. It is also highly nutritious and high energy that has never been seen by people on Earth, the entire Orion Arm, or even a large number of surrounding star fields. It is even more beneficial to the body. Of gourmet food. It smells so good. What is this? No, I want to eat it even if I smell it. Don't be embarrassed, this is in front of the giant mosquito supreme. Dang dang dang. Just when everyone began to covet what was in front of them, a burst of wedding music that people on Earth were accustomed to sounded. Everyone looked around and saw Jia Yan's clone in mid-air, who had changed into wedding clothes, with the stunningly beautiful Satsuma-kan on his arm, and Xiao Qiao who was looking at him curiously, as the three of them fell from the sky. The whole scene is magnificent, and with their appearance, the entire huge palace that stretches thousands of kilometers is filled with colorful brilliance. There is even more energy gushing out, and anyone who smells it can add several years to their life. What a beautiful picture, such a beautiful couple, such a cute child. Child. Ahem, what a wonderful family anyway. This must be Master Jia Yan from Earth. Looking at it this way, he is still very handsome. Handsome? Well, not bad, but I value his own strength more. The entire Orion Arm is invincible. The more important thing is, don't you understand? The people standing behind me are the giant mosquito clan, and even this giant mosquito supreme, tisk, tisk, if the news gets out, the civilizations in the outer starry sky will be shocked. Woolen cloth. More than 10 million people stood on the floor tiles, looking up at the entire gleaming palace, and then looking at the center of the palace, Jia Yan, his wife, and daughter, who were slowly flying towards them, like a couple of gods and gods. They were all fascinated. If any wedding in the history of the earth is considered to be the most pompous and grand in the entire history, then the appearance of this wedding will make all historical weddings pale in comparison. A palace that is 10,000 kilometers in size, plus a giant mosquito that is 50 kilometers in size, and more than 13 million people are participating in this wedding banquet. It is not said to be unprecedented, but it is certainly unprecedented. Even in the Orion Arm and in so many surrounding star fields, there would never have been such a grand wedding. Because looking around, there is no one as terrifying as Jia Yan, let alone such a huge palace, which is something that can only be met but not sought. So after this wedding, a legend will be created that is almost impossible to copy. Husband. Satsuma niche nestled next to Jia Yan, while following Jia Yan's clone, waving to more than 10 million people from time to time, while looking at Jia Yan lovingly. Although she is an alien female creature, female creatures of any race are a little vain, even Satsuma Temple is no exception. In the past, she was only proud that she got the legendary strongman Jia Yan, but now this a legendary powerhouse actually gave her an official title, and in such a grand scene, this made Satsuma Katari feel happy. Jia Yan said nothing. In fact, this amount of effort is just a drop in the bucket for him, but in exchange for the happiness of his family and his own happiness, it is still worth it. Moreover, just because his true body appeared once, the whole earth seemed to be setting sail again, and even the road for tens of thousands of years in the future was paved. Jia Yan was very happy to do it. The entire banquet lasted for 2 or 3 hours. People who ate and drank found that these meals could improve their bodies, and even had a visible cultivation effect. They just wanted to burst their bellies. As for ordinary people on earth, the elderly are several years younger, the frail and sick are now strong men, and those with physical defects have also been improved. It can be said that it has benefited a large number of people. I'm afraid that countless people around the world who were not chosen will be deeply depressed and turn into sour lemons after today, because the gap between them and those who went to Jia Yan's wedding instantly widened. From now on, anyone who says that they have attended Jia Yan's wedding will be in better health, practice faster, and their minds will become clearer, and their status will naturally be higher. Fortunately, the other undestined people on earth are not far behind. After all, the current earth has become a holy land for cultivation due to the leakage of energy in the palace. In the future, as long as we work hard enough, there is a high possibility of achieving certain results in cultivation. Even if this generation fails to achieve anything, the children born by people on earth will definitely become more talented. Thank you all for coming to my wedding. Jia Yan flew with his wife and daughter for a while, then found where the Jia family was and landed. At this moment, it was the end of the wedding banquet in the past 2 hours. People who had eaten and drank enough began to gradually be sent back to the earth and the original ship by Aditya in batches. People who were not scheduled were not in a hurry, but looked at the palace with wonder, or walked around to look at the endless palace, or took pictures with their cameras and mobile phones. They will definitely regard what they experienced today as the most legendary and proud event in their lives and leave it to future generations. Dad, Mom, how do you feel about the food? Jia Yan came to his parents and greeted them first. Compared with other people, the Jia family is less greedy when it comes to eating and drinking, because they know that if they want, they can eat these things anytime, anywhere. Moreover, the Jia family's status is extraordinary, and today is a rare public event. Although many ordinary people present have signed confidentiality agreements and are prohibited from filming them, their images will always be spread in the future. If they are as unruly as others, they will definitely be gossiped about. Haha, it's delicious. In just one meal, I found that your mother is now young and beautiful. You damn ghost, you know what you picked up, but Xiao Yan, what are these? I really feel like my strength is back, like when I was a kid. Jia's father and Jia's mother were all joking, and their faces were so red that they felt like they were young again after just one meal. This is a nutritional supplement that I found from outside, and only our table has it. If you too want it, I will send you some later. I guarantee that it will be enough to eat and drink for a lifetime. Jia Yan smiled calmly. Not to mention what his parents would eat for a lifetime, the resources he had left in his hands from Beuxing would be enough for the Jia family to eat and drink for a lifetime. Besides, even if he finished eating, wouldn't he be able to get more? Is it difficult to take a trip to North Star? So very generous. Brother, this is too good of you, I want it too. Uncle, I want it too. No, As soon as Jia Yan finished speaking, his sister Jia Lin and niece Jia Chi Jiaruo on the side shouted with bright eyes. Especially Jia Lin, she is close to 100 years old. Without practicing cultivation, even with the best medical support at this age, she is already a bit like a middle-aged person like Jia's mother. But after this meal, she really looked like a girl in her 20s. Jia Chi Jiaruo is similar. Although they are not old enough for people in this era, they look like teenage girls after finishing a meal. So how could you not be tempted by the current meal? You all have it, don't worry. Jia Yan smiled, he was very generous in this kind of thing. On the other hand, my wife Satsuma-chan is probably not that interested in these things. Originally, her body was created through the technology left over from her biochemical empire, so she can achieve whatever effect she wants casually. You guys should sit down and eat too. By the way, do you want to invite him to join us? Jia's mother asked Jia Yan and his wife to sit down, but hesitated and looked into the distance, staring at the big mountain here. Or it can't be said to be a mountain, but a planet-sized giant mosquito 50 kilometers away. To these guests, it is like a thorn in the back. Even the Jia family who are vaguely aware of the origin of the giant mosquito are like this. No, Dad, Mom, let's sit down. Jia Yan shook his head, then smiled and sat down with his parents. That's right, he didn't plan to let his real body have too much contact with his family anymore. Judging from the appearance alone, the two sides are no longer creatures of the same level. Even if Jia Yan is close, the family members can only see the soles of his feet when he is 50 kilometers long, and they can't even see his head clearly when they look up. The gap is so huge, why bother forcing so much contact? It's better to just use the clone. Jia Yan's attitude towards this matter is quite rational. Sometimes, watching from a distance is enough. Then, well, come on, Chiao, Grandma will hold you and feed you delicious food. Mother Jia skillfully stretched out her hand to hug her granddaughter Xiao Chiao. The cute little girl blinked with her big eyes, and then she obediently walked to her grandma and let her pick her up. This child is so good looking. He looks a bit like Xiaorong when he was a child, but he is more willing to get close to people than Xiaorong. He is so good. Jia Mu gave the food to Xiao Chiao. The little girl looked at her mother, and after receiving encouragement, she opened her mouth and swallowed, and then her eyes lit up. Thank you, Grandma, she said politely in a milky voice. Mom, Chiao is not only sensible, she also has a good talent for cultivation. I'm going to teach her something myself recently. Jia Yan also sat down with a smile. Hearing this, the others were fine, but his wife Satsuma Zen, who was sitting next to him, turned to look at Jia Yan in surprise. But she couldn't see anything, only an expressionless expression. You know, Satsuma Kono knows best how demanding Jia Yan is about teaching others. Before, she secretly asked Jia Yan what his son's talent was and whether Jia Yan could teach him something personally, but I got a negative answer from Jia Yan, because Jia Rong's talent is weak. But I never expected that the child born naturally in another village would be affirmed by Jia Yan and said that she had good talent. Is this reason because Jia Yan is her own child in the true sense, or is it because Chiao's talent is really good? Satsumakan didn't know what Jia Yan meant either. But it was hard for her to ask. Just as the family was enjoying themselves and eating, Jia Yan frowned slightly while eating. What's wrong, husband? Satsumakan's entire mind was almost entirely on Jia Yan, so at this moment, he was the first to notice that something was wrong with him. Nothing, keep eating. Jia Yan shook his head, saying he didn't want to ruin the current family atmosphere. Everyone did not doubt his presence and continued the joyful atmosphere. Jia Yan himself, on the other hand, was a little more thoughtful. On the other hand, the real body has slightly shifted its spirit and spread it out into the vacuum outside. He just sensed that his external energy had some movement. This energy was the defense that I had previously given to my grandson Gia-11's talisman. Unexpectedly, it had only been a while before it was activated. Did this kid cause trouble outside? No, he was hanging around the so-called princess of the empire, preparing to pick up girls. Could it be that he was discovered and had to use the power of the amulet to protect himself? When Jia Yan thought of this, he secretly spat, he deserves it. Anyone who lets you take advantage of your handsomeness will dare to pick up anyone, so it's good to suffer a little now. After Jia Yan sensed it just now, he knew that his power had only been activated a little. Presumably Gia-11's crisis was not as high as the galaxy level coming to attack him. As long as it is not galaxy level, the newly added power of the amulet is enough to deal with all crises, so he is not in a hurry. I just want to see if this kid still dares to cause trouble after suffering a loss. Boom. Boom boom boom. Far away in the normal starry sky, bursts of rumbling noises were heard. Not to mention other people, the person who made this movement at the moment, Gia-11, was stunned. He seemed to have been caught in an immobilization spell and flew into the normal space, dumbfounded. Because in front of him, the star-level powerhouse who was so arrogant just now is now being blasted away by the power of the amulet he released. It has to be said that a star-level expert is still strong enough. Although the star-level person in front of him is probably just a junior star, his body can withstand the impact of several amulets. But this doesn't mean that he feels better. He couldn't resist it at all. The power released from Gia-11's amulet hit him in the distance again and again, and his whole body burst into pieces. Even if he didn't die, he was almost dead. After 3 strikes, the entire universe was in turmoil and completely chaotic. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2472. This, what kind of power is this? The star-level powerhouse's eyes quickly became blurred, and he stepped back violently, as if he couldn't believe it at all. What power? You should have some guesses in your mind, that's all. Gia-11 calmed down her shocked expression and said calmly, in the subspace. Being in the subspace, most of the violent forces from the outside world were blocked out. A small part entered the subspace, but was blocked by the amulet hanging on his body. After listening to Gia-11's words, the first-level star showed regret in his eyes. But the regretful mood was not revealed for a long time, and then he closed his eyes, unable to hold on any longer, and died directly. Who? Outside the subspace, bursts of energy have been rising violently. Even the energy channels that were originally in this area were directly torn apart by the violent force, and became blocked and disconnected here. Feeling the destructive scene outside, the handsome young man in the subspace couldn't help but sigh. Is my grandfather's ability really that strong? An amulet is so powerful. I thought he was dead this time. He wanted to think about it, but when he looked further into the distance, he found that there seemed to be a similar huge figure wreaking havoc in a distant place. He quickly turned his head and flew away. Gia-11 is not stupid. Her amulet has protected her once. If she does it again, maybe she will be the one to burp. Oh, interesting. The giant mosquito stood arrogantly on the high platform of the palace, sensing the power that belonged to him in the distance. It was consuming it rapidly, and it stopped after about half of it was consumed. Judging by the energy consumption, he could tell that the enemy his grandson faced was a star. Is he a star? There is no star-level powerhouse in Orion's arms. Thinking of the border area where he is, the origin of this star-level powerhouse becomes obvious. He is a powerhouse from the outside world. What? Jia Yan sneered. He thought it was quite interesting. I have been traveling in the outside world for so long, and there are no big problems in my hometown. But as soon as I come back, the Orion arm is in danger. What is this called? Could it be that I am really the lucky star of the Orion arm, and when I arrive, I will benefit the Orion arm and save the people here? Xiao 11 is over there, so there shouldn't be much of a problem. After killing a first-level strongman from the star, my energy is no longer consumed, which means that he escaped and still has more than half of his energy, even if 2 or 3 more come. There won't be any big surprises at the stellar level, so I might as well take it easy. It's not that Jia Yan isn't worried about his grandson. This kid has his own subspace talent. Jia Yan wants to cultivate it, but he doesn't want him to die like this. Of course, there is also concern for the younger generation's family ties. Otherwise, when I passed by, I saw that he was still wearing his original version of the amulet, so why bother to add some strength to him? Okay, now that this kid can escape, let's consider the safety of the border. Jia Yan's real body moved, wanting to go there himself. But after thinking about it, Jia Yan stopped moving again. We are still in the middle of a feast, and all the relatives of the Jia family are here. It's better to just stop in the universe and fly over to this palace, right? The border area seems to be the border of the Empire. This former hegemon-level force has been coveting the status of the Earth Alliance recently. It just happens to be taking advantage of this time to hammer away. As for casualties, war is inevitable without casualties. Jia Yan suddenly stopped moving. The deaths and injuries of the Empire are nothing sad to him. He, Jia Yan, is not as compassionate as a holy mother. Moreover, according to his understanding, the Empire has been causing trouble for the Earth Alliance in recent years. If he does not want to worry about himself in the future, while they were away, they posed a threat to the Earth, so this time they have to give it a good beating. For Jia Yan, as long as the Earth Alliance is not too miserable, he can accept it. After all, although his status as the protector of the Orion arm is indeed true, being a human being has a relationship between distant and distant relatives. If he really upholds justice, then he should not cultivate a low-level civilization like the Earth to become the overlord of the Orion arm, but simply letting the Empire continue to be its overlord would be a good thing for the Orion arm. Unfortunately, Jia Yan is not so selfless. Therefore, as long as some people from other civilizations die, it is acceptable to Jia Yan as long as they are not destroyed. Let's just wait and see what happens for a while. Besides, the giant Mosquito Supreme, sensed that the Orion arm was in danger, so I rushed to help without waiting for the Orion arm people to come to ask for help. Isn't it a bit cheap? This is not in line with me. Supreme identity. After Jia Yan thought about this, he didn't want to move for a moment. At the same time, the incident in the border area suddenly spread throughout the Orion arm. After many years, the Orion arm, which had already established a good relationship with the surrounding star fields and at least had a basic relationship, was once again suddenly attacked by an unknown person. And this time, what comes directly is a star-level powerhouse. You must know that although the strong troops who came to attack the Orion arm originally had galaxy-level beings and stellar-level beings, their numbers were not large, and their actions and appearances were all based on the premise of key battles. The rest of the time point, these strong men will not take action. But this time it was different. The stellar powerhouses who raided the Orion arm went directly towards ordinary troops and caravans without saying a word, and even prepared to attack and kill the imperial princess. These messages were like snowflakes, sent from the empire and civilizations that had been similarly attacked, and spread throughout the entire Orion arm in an instant. You know, with the Orion arm equipped with external communication technology, the transmission of messages is no longer so slow, and even the most distant civilization can be notified the next day. Many officials on the Earth, as well as ambassadors of various civilizations, were still enjoying the sweetness gained in the palace. Many of them had even broken through a level or cured their serious illnesses. Everyone was trapped in a carnival state. But when the news came that the border had been lost, all these officials were suddenly pulled from a state of extreme carnival to a hell of horror. You must know that almost all of the people who can hold high-ranking positions on Earth today have survived from the Earth's crisis era to the present. They all remember the war and the great foreign attack that almost forced even the people on Earth to abandon their homeland. Still new. Horrible memories of the war flooded into their hearts. Suddenly the joy before disappeared, and all that was left was fear. What to do? What to do? Outland attacks our Orion arm again. Is there going to be another horrific crisis like last time this time? And there will be star-level experts as soon as they appear. You know, there were very few star-level people who attacked our Orion arm last time. What should we do? Our Orion arm was able to win the previous wars entirely because of Master Mosquito Ancestor and the tactics he taught to defeat Wei. Now let alone Master Mosquito Ancestor, there were so many warriors who knew the tactics of defeating Wei. Everyone has retired, some have died of old age, and the remaining ones are getting older, and no one can guarantee whether they still have fighting ability. Could it be that, we are going to ask the Supreme Master of Giant Mosquito? You know, this gentleman is probably the ancestor of Mr. Mosquito. I don't know that this time. Shut up, there's no need to say anything about this. Okay, let's just sit back and watch what happens. As the Orion Arm Chairman Civilization, our Earth Alliance must first stabilize our mentality and respond to all major civilizations to prepare for war. Then we will also take control of the Orion Arm Alliance's exclusive war bank and start distributing war funds. I'm afraid this future war will be difficult to fight. Okay. Within the Earth Alliance, officials of all sizes immediately entered into intense and exciting preparations for war mobilization. And in the huge palace in space, there are not many people left here. It's nothing more than the Geo family and a few servants of the Geo family. Uncle Ju, listen to me. I have reached a bottleneck in the yin and yang Tao you taught me. Can you help me answer my doubts? Of course it's possible. But I'm a little surprised that you can practice to the bottleneck stage. What? You can't look down on me. I, your niece, am said to be the best woman on earth. Jia Qi stayed by Jia Yan's side all day long. She looked like a grown woman, but she still clung to her uncle as she did when she was a child. Although Jia Yan was still a little awkward looking at Jia Qi who had become an adult, he was still willing to give advice to the juniors. Judging from Jia Qi's demeanor and behavior, he found that this little niece was not much different from before. There have been many changes, maybe she is already an iron-blooded female general outside, but in front of him, she will still show the same feeling of attachment to her uncle, which is something that Jia Yan misses very much. But this time it was different. Just after Jia Yan agreed to Jia Qi's request, her personal communicator rang. Jia Yan deliberately asked Edisha not to block the radio signals from the outside world, otherwise the people in this palace would be isolated from the outside world. What? How is it possible, this? Listening to the call, Jia Kai suddenly stood up from the chair where she was sitting. Then she hung up the phone and looked at Jia Yan, looking like she was hesitant to speak. What's wrong, Zioki? It's nothing. Uncle, I'm going back to Earth first. You have someone take me off. It's urgent. In the end, Jia Qi didn't say anything, and asked Jia Yan to arrange for Edisha to send her back to Earth. Jia Yan smiled. As a strong man, how could he not hear what Jia Qi said in the conversation just now? That was when someone informed her that the border was lost and the situation was urgent. But this once little niece has now become very mature and is not ready to disturb Jia Yan's happy event, so she returns to Earth to handle matters first. Not long after, the subspace in front of Jia Kai split open, and an equipment truck for transporting people from Earth appeared. She entered it and left the palace in a hurry. What's wrong with Xiaoqi? Are you going back now? Jialin was a little curious when she saw her daughter entering the subspace. Yes, Xiaolin, your daughter has really grown up. That's right, brother, you should also pay more attention to your children. Your grandchildren have grown up, okay. Jialin had an angry look on her face, as if she was blaming her brother for not caring about his family. But Jia Yan just smiled slightly and shook his head, unable to reply. Jialin did not dwell too much on this matter, because everyone in the Jia family knew that this matter was very complicated and could not be explained by ignoring the family. Of course, even to this day, some of the things in everyone's heart are hidden and not explained clearly. If you explain it clearly, some relationships will be broken, and maybe even family members will not be so happy about it. Well. Jia Yan sighed and looked at the Jia family, who were still having a drink and chatting happily. His parents were even amazed at the surrounding scenery and said that if they wanted to farm here, they only needed a very small piece of land. Dad, Mom, you want to farm, but this palace is actually not suitable. Let's do this. Later, I will make a small farming planet for you too. Then you can grow as much as you want, and play as you want. Just play as you like, how about it? He stepped forward and said this to Jia's parents. That's great, but an asteroid? It's a bit difficult, right now. People on Earth can only immigrate to asteroids. There is no technology to push asteroids to the periphery of the Earth. It's just a small matter. It will be done in 2 days. However, there may be some small news in these 2 days. Don't worry, I'm here. Jia Yan gave the 2 elders and a group of relatives around him eye drops in advance to prepare them. After a while, they heard the war information from the outside world and were less frightened. But after all, when they heard the news about the resumption of war, Jia's parents and his sister, Jia Lin, were still so shocked that they couldn't even breathe. You know, they have experienced wars more than once or twice. It is extremely dangerous every time too. Even if there were help from the giant mosquito and ancestor mosquito, none of them are easy. Even the mosquito ancestor went through a lot of dangers, and finally won a battle with several powerful enemies before he finally won. And they also know in their hearts that there is a so-called giant mosquito clan. From beginning to end, the giant mosquitoes and mosquito ancestors are all standing in the distance, talking to themselves and others with the human clone next to them. Just a giant mosquito. Judging from the many previous battles in which the giant mosquito, who was not a relative but was better than a relative, was beaten to life and death, if a powerful enemy attacks again this time, he might be punished again. Otherwise, the Earth surrenders. As long as we surrender and obey the arrangements, so many random enemies will not cause trouble to us anymore. Jia Mu even said something very whimsical. Mom, we can't just surrender on this kind of thing. The result of surrender will only be the extinction of all of us on Earth. Jia Lin understands the situation much better than her parents. Jia Yan looked at everyone's solemn expressions and couldn't help but shake his head. Didn't I say that? Don't worry, things are different now. The star field around the Orion arm, no matter how powerful it is not a problem for us. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2473. The relatives of the Jia family, apart from being relatives of Jia Yan, are actually just ordinary people on Earth. There are a few talented people among the younger generation. Due to their limited vision and family background, they tend to think about things in a more complicated and pessimistic way when facing similar problems. This is the reason why their lack of confidence prevents them from thinking of a safe way to handle things when dealing with similar troubles in their minds, and they cannot correct their mentality. This matter has nothing to do with right or wrong, it is just a normal mentality. The attitude of Jia Yan and his family members was different. That's not to say that his mentality is much better. Although he has seen so many storms and waves, his mentality is definitely good, but another more important reason is that he is a strong man himself. As a senior domain master, he even dares to wreak havoc in the central star field of the Milky Way, and he dares to have no scruples in that place where strong men dominate. So how can he be afraid when he comes to the Orion Arm area? He was frightened by a group of star-level attacks casually. How could he be a senior domain master? Oh, okay, Xiao Yan, we are just a little worried. How about we make some complete preparations? You don't understand. The Earth Alliance has been preparing for the worst ever since it was developed. So there is an ARC project, and if possible, I will get them started. Jiamu didn't know why, but she never felt very safe in her heart. Only when she talked about the ARC project did she regain some sense of peace. The group of Jia family members behind him who knew the inside story were all speechless. They know that in recent years, although Jia's mother Li Ying, like Jia's father Jia Sheng, has spent most of her time at Jia's house to take care of her elderly, because of her lack of sense of security, she has somehow gotten in touch with some pessimistic people. Those people inexplicably got the support of Jiamu and launched the ARC project, which means that when some Earth Alliance encounters a crisis, they can retain part of the Earth's fire and civilization heritage. I'm afraid Jiamu doesn't even know that those people got a lot of financial resources from the Alliance to make so-called plans just because they got Jiamu's support, even if it was just verbal. Several entrepreneurs made a lot of money. The bowl was full, and the Earth Alliance knew their plan was unreliable, but because they moved out a mountain like Jia Yan Mother to suppress it, no one dared to stop it. Mom, please really relax, it should be fine. But there are always accidents in everything. Oh, Xiao Yan, you don't know. I am not afraid of my mother, but the children are. There are many children on the earth who also need us to take good care of them. I'm afraid Jia's mother had her own insistence on this point. After listening to her words, Jia Yan couldn't laugh or cry and had to nod. Well, what you said is right. It's always good to have more than one mind in everything. Just let them start the initial preparations. Maybe it will be useful one day. Of course, Mom, please don't ask them to be too influence the Alliance policy, otherwise I will be the first to say no. Okay. Okay. I'll notify them right away. Mother Jia was quite happy, and she excitedly picked up her Earth version communicator and went to announce the news to the following people in a decent manner. Brother, don't worry. I've already warned you about teasing those people with Mom. It should be fine. Jia Lin walked to Jia Yan and shook her head helplessly at him. I understand, but you should also find something to do for your parents to relieve their boredom. Otherwise, if they are always entangled with such forces, it will always be easy to cause problems, you know. Okay. After Jia Yan finished handling the matters at hand, he finally got some time. He deliberately let Edisha enter the surrounding interstellar network, forcibly broke through the relatively backward system, and watched a lot of intelligence. For an advanced intelligence brain, a lower level means a lower level. Even if it is a network system that it has never been exposed to, as long as you are connected to the internet and have the concept of using the network, it will have a way to break through and enter it. After all, the network technology from the galactic central star field and black hole area, and even some northern giant stars, is like a dimensionality-reducing blow to the current surroundings of the Orion Arm. Master, their skills are like child's play, and Edisha quickly got the permission, ha ha ha. Very good, then take a look, what do they want to do? Why did they suddenly attack my Orion Arm? Jia Yan had already guessed that Atissa would win, and was not too happy. He just asked the question he wanted to know directly. The little mosquito that turned into Edisha pondered for a moment, and Jia Yan knew that it was looking for information. I see, Master, there are very few places with online information, but I still found most of the reasons in a few places. Those who came to attack our Orion arm were several large star forces. They actually have 3 galaxy levels. As for the strong ones, there are also many star regions that do not have galaxy-level strong ones who are also involved. The reason is, there is a very strong galaxy class who dominates them with strength and orders them to attack the Orion arm. The conclusion that Edisha came to made Jia Yan to frown slightly. Are there strong men who rule the surrounding star regions? Jia Yan was very suspicious. For the local area around the Orion arm that is dozens of times the size, reaching the galaxy level is already a very strong presence. Generally speaking, all the forces have almost stabilized. Those strong people who have reached the galaxy level also rule the area. There are limits, and they won't change for a long time. The more stable the region is, the lower the chance of you trying to break through in terms of strength. Especially at the galaxy level, it is difficult for a strong person to move up a level just by being closed-minded. Therefore, there is no possibility that a galaxy class stronger than them will suddenly appear in this area. Then this strong man who suddenly appeared was definitely from the outside world. Edisha, can you find out the true identity of this strong man? What is his strength? Jia Yan asked suspiciously. Edisha fell into deep thought again, and this time it took a breath longer than last time. Master, Edisha couldn't find it. It seems that the strong man also knew that his information might be leaked by the internet, so he ordered all star fields to erase his information. Is that so? Okay, thank you for your hard work, Edisha. No matter what kind of strong man he is, in short, he still needs this method to deal with the Orion arm, which means that his strength is nothing more than this, and it's no big deal. Jia Yan nodded. He wants a reason, just out of curiosity. This is also a habitual task that must be done before every battle, rather than paying more attention to the enemy this time. The so-called knowing yourself and the enemy, and being victorious in every battle, and not slacking off even in backward areas where it is unlikely that a big enemy will appear, is the policy of a strong man. Of course, being cautious is one thing, but whether you really regard your opponent as a formidable enemy is another. At least after reading the information about this unknown enemy, Jia Yan no longer felt solemn at all. Very good, then let's see how the situation develops. I will take action when the time is right. Jia Yan sneered. Moreover, his delayed action this time will not only advance the future status of the Earth Alliance, but also stabilize the status of his relatives. There is also a smaller advantage, that is, he can also take a look at how his grandson Jia 11, who happens to be at the border of the Orion arm and is involved in the war, will behave. For our Jia family, it is almost impossible for my parents' generation to change. Besides me, my generation consists of my sister and brother-in-law. Although they have tried to take power, they have done nothing. The next generation Xiaorong and Qi, although they have achieved some success now and each of them is in a high position, they still cannot satisfy me. So Xiaoxi, as the representative of the youngest generation, can just allow me to observe and see whether the Jia family has evolved to a generation that can really shoulder the burden. Jia Yan has indeed always been a little dissatisfied with the fact that he is the only one in the family who is taking care of everything. He would be more satisfied if there were a few more capable people in the family. The junior Jia Yan was watching. Jia 11, was indeed in the midst of history. He didn't know that the talisman on his body still had most of its power. So at this moment, he was a bit silent. After returning to the state without the protection of his ancestors, he has returned to his original Starry Sky level powerhouse. Although he is a young Starry Sky powerhouse who is only 18 years old, his youth does not bring him much advantage in the turbulent area. The enemy will never stop using his energy and talent just because he is young and talented. Throw the weapon at his head? On the contrary, Jia 11 was a little embarrassed. Damn it! Those aliens are attacking again. Friends, come on. At this moment, GA-11 was lying in a building on a planet, surrounded by his current comrades. That's right, after killing the strong man in the first level of the star, GA-11 thought that the power in the amulet was completely exhausted. He was so frightened that he didn't even dare to activate the amulet to help him move in the subspace, so he had to using his own subspace ability. He shuttled through the subspace, and finally found an unmanned life-saving airship that flew aside after the main caravan ship was blown up. Entering the airship, GA-11 experienced several starry sky sweeps by large enemy forces. Fortunately, either because of his skillful driving skills or because the enemy was not interested in civilian airships, he survived without any danger. Eventually the airship ran out of fuel and he made an emergency landing on a planet that happened to be attacked by the enemy. The attack pressure on the planet is not too great, because it is not on the waterway, and it is not the territory of the Empire. It is just because it is very close to the Empire and the race is almost the same as the Empire, so it goes to attack most of the Empire, and incidentally sends a small group of low-strength troops came to occupy the planet. The war broke out so fast that a civilization with only 2 habitable stars on this planet as its home planet had no time to react. Being almost identical to the intelligent race of the Empire, they also have an appearance that is indistinguishable from the people on Earth. Because of this appearance, for a long time, they were completely regarded as vassals of the Empire. Even some civilizations within the Orion Arm will not be marked on the map, but will be classified into the Empire's territory. After all, the two sides are very close, and this civilization will follow the Empire's lead in everything. GA-11's emergency landing did not attract much attention, because when he descended, it happened to be the time when the fighting between the two sides was the most fierce. Such a civilian escape boat was probably a merchant ship or tourist spacecraft on an alien planet. Come on, similar incidents have happened more than once since the battle started. So when GA-11 landed on this planet, other than making herself disgraced, no other accidents happened. But soon, he fell into more accidents and troubles on the planet. After all, this is a planet in war, and the war situation is intense. Although the enemy's large force is unprecedentedly powerful, if a slightly more powerful team comes, this small civilization can be eliminated in an instant, but it's a coincidence. What came was only a relatively weak small force. As a result, the two sides ended up in a stalemate and the fight was inextricable. GA-11 was soon regarded as one of his own because of his similar appearance to this civilized species. What happened was that when he passed a battlefield, he was regarded as a member of this civilized species and was attacked by enemy troops. No matter what, GA-11 is also a starry sky-level powerhouse. Putting aside the amulet, his own strength, even in this civilization, can be considered strong enough, at least worthy of being in the first echelon. So GA-11 took action and sent the enemy troops fighting to Shiyuan help to cripple them, allowing the humanoid civilization that counterattacked to win this small battlefield. After that, well, GA-11 naturally became a member of this team. The strength he claims to the outside world is mid-level heaven level. In an area where the enemy has an advantage, it is natural to have a trump card. Without the amulet, GA-11's only trump card is his own primary starry sky strength and the more life-saving subspace method. And even if he only showed mid-level strength at the heaven level, he was strong enough to stand out in this weak civilization. At least in 2 or 3 consecutive small battles, his performance quickly attracted attention. 11, you are really strong. You killed most of the enemy troops in the 10-man team just now. Without you, it would be really difficult for our 8-man team to win. Without you, I wouldn't be able to deal with them by myself. Okay, let's change the battlefield. By the way, are there any important military facilities above that we need to protect? I think we have enough strength now. GA-11 carried a gun and a knife on his back, and put on some makeup on his young face, as if he had aged 10 years and turned into a mature man in his 20s. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2474. Jia 11 and her 7 current comrades fought a fierce battle with the enemy, annihilating a 10-man enemy monster force that was theoretically similar to them in strength, and then rested at the back of the battlefield while discussing the next city. The plan for guerrilla warfare. But Jia 11's purpose is not to help this civilization. That's right, his purpose is the military supplies he just told his comrades. As soon as he got close to the military supplies department, he didn't believe it. He couldn't get a battleship out, but if he got a battleship, he would be able to find the right opportunity to escape from this planet. Ha ha ha, 11, I think you are too loyal. The enemies we are dealing with now are not too powerful, but it will be different if we protect military facilities. It is said that the casualty rate of several military facilities is extremely high. I think you'd better give up this idea. It's good to fight in small groups with the enemy. Until the other civilized armies of the Orion Arm gather together, maybe we still have a chance to survive. I wipe it. I want what I feel, not what you feel. When Jia 11's words were rejected negatively by his companion, his eyes began to roll. Although Jia 11 is young, he is different from his somewhat rigid father Jia Rong and his seemingly great-grandfather Jia Yan. He is a sunny and confident boy who has enjoyed millions of attention since he was a child and is extremely handsome. Once he has made a decision, he will not give up. What's more, if he wants to escape from this weak and chaotic story, he really has no choice but to grab a battleship. He doesn't want to be the savior of this civilization at all, not to mention that he doesn't have the ability to do so without his amulet. 11. Now let's go back to the original mission. As I said just now, although we will not protect military facilities and the like, the superiors have assigned a mission to our outstanding team. Are you interested in hearing about it? Jia 11 was feeling annoyed and asked angrily, I'm not interested, but a task is a task. We have to do it if the superiors ask us to do it. Tell me, what kind of task is it? You guessed half of it just now. Our new mission is really a protection mission, but it is not to protect any facility, but to protect the family of a high-ranking official assigned by the above. Young people, be prepared and work hard to resist the enemy. The chariot to pick us up is coming soon, and we will meet our employer in an hour. Listening to the words of the squad leader giving orders, everyone was feebly getting ready to go. Jia 11 is also among them, but he doesn't have too many complaints or dissatisfaction, because he has been so unhappy during the whole days of being mixed in a different civilization. Anyway, whether he wins or loses the war has little to do with him. Even if he wins, due to his status, no one may know that an Earth Geo family member has fought for them. Because this civilization has completely turned to the Empire. They don't know how to thank the people on Earth. Even for such a small civilization, no one from the official level has been to the Earth from beginning to end, so it can't be said to be friendly. Jia if 11 has become a hero here, I am afraid that instead of being grateful, he may downplay Jia 11's contribution and make a big fuss out of the fact that he, a member of the Geo family, has traveled to their civilized home planet. As a young person of the Geo family, although there are not many tacticians among the elders, Jia 11 is already the third generation. The complex thinking patterns of the superiors have been deeply engraved in Jia 11's mind since she was a child. In the head. Boom. Not long after, a roaring chariot arrived at the street area where fierce fighting was still taking place. As it flicked its tail, Jia 11 and the 7 members of his team crouched and entered the chariot door at high speed. Boom. The next moment, the tank withstood the enemy's large-caliber artillery shells, braved thick smoke, broke through the encirclement, and drove into the distance. They left without the enemy pursuing them. Because the enemy troops surrounding the 7-man team knew how brave this 7-man team was. It only took 7 people to contain the group of at least 200 aliens here. To the enemy, It's quite a thorn in the side. It doesn't matter if they leave now, it would be better to go to other places and be killed by the strong men of their army. After all, a battle like theirs is like playing house to a truly strong person. If any venerable level strong person passes by, with the power of a brain wave, both sides will suffer heavy casualties in an instant. Therefore, such a difficult enemy may seem to have an impact on them, but if they go to the next place, they may not even be able to use tactics, and they will be killed by the strong ones. This is the helplessness of living in a universe where the strong is supreme. If the strong cannot do these things, who would still practice? Boom boom boom. Superfiring and supercharging are fierce. Gia-11 sat in the chariot and watched the scenery outside the projected window fly away quickly. The chariot even crashed into several ordinary houses of alien civilizations, traveling at lightning speed along the way. No wonder it dares to carry out the task of picking up people on a battlefield where the enemy and ourselves are mixed. I am afraid it is out of confidence in this tank. Of course, there is a reason, because the battlefield they just fought on is a low-end battlefield. Otherwise, no matter how many tanks there are, they would not dare to attack the position with a venerable level presence. Gia-11 likes machinery very much. If it weren't for the Gia family, he would have majored in mechanics. Precisely because of his expertise, he has mastery of most of the major interstellar navigation and ground transportation in the entire Orion arm, which makes him in his previous escape trip, he could drive with any means of transportation. This is not far from the family we want to protect. They are about to fall into the war zone, so we must rush there quickly and take them away from the war zone before the enemy captures them. Note, this is a death order. The captain turned on the holographic screen and said solemnly to Gia-11 and other team members. Yes. A group of people saluted solemnly, including Gia-11, who had infiltrated the army. Of course, Gia-11 just dealt with it casually. If things changed, he would be the first to use his subspace ability to escape. Creak. Not long after, the chariot was still on the edge of the battle, and everyone got off the vehicle outside the wall of a wealthy man's villa that looked quite grand. Listen, your team is the most outstanding team in our war zone, so this mission will be entrusted to you. In addition to protecting this family, we are not allowed to interact with this important person without authorization. No contact, no talking allowed. If danger occurs, even if it costs your own life, you must ensure the safety of their lives. Do you understand? Yes. After getting off the co-pilot's seat from the front of the chariot, an officer with a rank 2 ranks higher than everyone present stepped down. After saying the above words to everyone, the 7-man team became more serious. Because the mission level has changed. The mission level that the captain received just now was said to be to protect a high-ranking official, but it was not said to be so serious. Now the chief went out again and asked their strong team to protect the people who must be protected at the risk of their lives. This shows that the people in this house are probably more important than imagined. Okay, now wait here. The mission target will come out in a while. You can leave directly. There will be a force of about 500 people here to cover you. I hope everyone is safe. After finishing speaking, the officer stepped onto the chariot again, and the chariot with its stains roared away again. As for their group, they waited for 5 or 6 luxury-looking cars for ordinary people, presumably to prevent the enemy from paying too much attention to them. The people are here. Do you understand the mission requirements? Try not to talk or have contact with the target and do our job well. The team leader looked at Ji now, which had already sent instructions for the mission targets to prepare for their trip. Gia-11 was not affected by the current tension at all. He was once hunted by a strong star-level person. He was not afraid of creatures 10 kilometers away in front of him, let alone the current situation. But Gia-11, who seemed to be calm and composed, was startled when he saw a young girl with a rather frightened expression among the noble-looking people in the room. At the same time, the girl seemed to casually sweep away the 7 protectors here, and then she also froze. Gia-11 murmured softly. It was obvious that the girl opposite seemed to have uttered some foul language. 11, lower your voice, have you forgotten the mission above? The team leader beside him quickly reminded Gia-11. Gia-11, who was in a state of turmoil, had thoughts tumbling in her heart. Then she seemed to think of something, showed a half smile, and nodded to the girl, but did not come forward to talk to her. The beautiful girl was definitely more stunned than Gia-11, but the people around her had already entered their respective vehicles, so she had no choice but to follow and enter the one she was riding alone. If you observe carefully, it is not difficult to see that the vehicle she is riding in is the safest among ordinary civilian vehicles, and its performance in some aspects is even as good as that of military vehicles. It can be seen how closely the people around her protect this girl. Assign protectors to each vehicle, 1 to 2 per vehicle. 11, There is a vehicle over there that wants you. The team leader was just about to arrange protectors for the mission targets in the way he had already agreed, but he didn't expect that a man with a rather strange look stepped out of the vehicle the girl had just boarded, and then this man said to the team leader something made the team leader look weird. The other team members are also very weird. When 11 met the eyes of the top girl who walked out of the manor just now, there was definitely a slight pause on both sides. Could it be that in such a short moment, that girl who must have been born extraordinary fell in love with 11? Depend on. Can he really be used as a meal if he is handsome? Even such a temperamental girl from a big family falls in love at first sight? 11, go ahead. Remember, you are already 28, and my little girl is only a teenager. Don't mess around with her. The gap in status is too big. When the team leader asked Gia-11 to step forward, he did not forget to whisper this message in Gia-11's ears. Captain, just let me go. I can't have anything to do with you. Gia-11 smiled bitterly, then nodded to the other teammates, and then strode towards the luxury car. He got into the car normally and saw that the passenger seat and driver's seat were separated. In other words, it was a completely closed space inside. And in this space, sat the beautiful girl with extraordinary beauty and noble demeanor that he and others had just seen. Hello, we have specially recruited 11 to report to you. Click. Gia-11 said business-like words to the girl, then got into the car, sat down, and closed the car door. Puff. But when the car door was closed and outside attention was cut off, Gia-11 relaxed instantly, threw the gun in her hand next to the seat, and looked carefree. Oh, this gun is quite heavy. Being a soldier is tiring. The girl sitting across from him didn't seem surprised at all by Gia-11's change in attitude, and just looked at him with a confused expression. Gia-11 was completely familiar with it. She took out 2 cans of this civilization's most famous iced drink from the luxury car refrigerator, threw one of the cans to the girl, and opened the other can and drank it in her stomach. Go. The girl hurriedly caught the drink, but did not drink it. She still looked at Gia-11 during her performance without saying a word. Find the bookstore. What's wrong? My dear little princess, are you surprised that I also appear here? In fact, it is not difficult to imagine that we escaped together in an escape boat and were blown to the same route by the violent energy. This is very reasonable. It's an inference, isn't it? However, we are really destined. After quelling her thirst, Gia-11 smiled again. That's right, the beautiful and temperamental girl sitting opposite Gia-11 is actually the Imperial Princess Suya who he met at the Orion Arm border before. This girl, who was no different from the beautiful girls on Earth, had the same fate as Gia-11. She was attracted by Gia-11's words, and she barely escaped with her maid after that battle, but because she was just the escape boat could only land on the home planet of this civilization. She originally thought that this place was already on the edge of the Empire and she would be able to return to the interior of the Empire immediately. Unexpectedly, the enemy happened to have already attacked the civilization. She had no choice but to he infiltrated into this high-ranking official's family incognito and lived a life of escape. What's the fate? It's just that we met on a narrow road. Gia-11, I'm not curious about you coming to this planet, but I'm curious about how you escaped the attack of that big monster. You know, through judgment later, we found that he was you may be a star-level powerhouse. Are you stronger than your grandfather Jia-yan? After all, Suya is not a girl from an ordinary family. After being stunned for a moment, she regained her temperament as a princess. She retorted calmly, and then asked about her biggest doubt about Jia-11's appearance here. At the last moment she boarded the small escape boat. She clearly saw that the behemoth was going to chase her, but was blocked by Jia-11 in the subspace. After that, she had already boarded the cosmic hurricane and escaped at an extremely fast speed, so she did not watch the subsequent scenes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2475. Stronger than my grandfather? No, dear princess, you probably don't understand the meaning of my grandfather's strength at all. Don't worry about how I escaped. Anyway, I can't protect myself now. I don't know how the princess can help me. Do I also leave the civilization? If you can send me directly back to Earth, that would be the best. I miss my mother's delicious food. Jia-11 wanted to laugh when she heard these aliens talking about her grandfather, Jia-yan, in a very reasonable manner. Suya's analysis was so exciting that she even said that her grandfather might be weaker than the first-level star warrior who attacked her. Please, my grandfather may have been that powerful in front of you last time, but how long has it been since? When you are making baseless arguments, can you also include the age of my grandfather? Jia-11 didn't know the relationship between Jia-yan and Giant Mosquito. As a junior of the Geo family, he only remembered that his grandfather was the strongest person on Earth and a great hero who once saved the Orion arm. So he wasn't going to talk more about his grandfather with his sister. Besides, even if he wanted to talk, he would have nothing to talk about. He only met his grandfather once when he was so old. Of course, his grandfather was really loved by him and gave him an amulet, and it was this amulet that killed the star and allowed him to escape. Hearing Jia-11 change the topic, the girl raised her eyebrows, looking quite unhappy with Jia-11. Well, since you call me dear princess, I will also call you dear Jia-11. Mr. Jia-11, do you think that if I had a way to leave, I would still stay to meet you now? Those damn foreigners damn seeing, he probably calculated that I might be on this planet and blocked almost all possibilities. As a result, I can only hide here and there on this planet. Suya complained like this, and then found that Jia-11 opposite her looked at her thoughtfully, and then seemed to think of something. She is also a smart child, and she immediately understood what Jia-11 was thinking. Hey, dear Mr. Jia-11, you don't want to stay away from me, do you? You are a child of the greatest family on Earth. You should not do this kind of thing, abandoning a poor and helpless child. Is it about a girl? Think about it, how miserable I am alone, how wonderful it is to have a strong man beside me who can escape from being chased by stars. You can't bear to look at me, a little girl, like this, like a street rat. Will you continue to hide on this planet? Unexpectedly, her sincerity and good deeds were rewarded with a confused and affirmative nod. Jia-11 didn't hesitate at all. Be patient. You, or all of your Geo family so ungentlemanly? Suya was shocked. You must know that the aristocrats of the empire have always been taught to treat women well, even if they are enemies. The people of the empire are usually gentle to ladies who are hostile to them, but they did not expect that a child from the greatest family on Earth a family that is nominally as noble as the royal family of their empire, can be so inhumane. Why do you want to rise to our Geo family? It's just that I don't want to accompany you to death. My dear princess, if you have a brain, you can think about my situation. I, like you, wandered around and landed on this planet. Originally, I was so flustered that I looked for opportunities to escape anonymously in the crowd. Do you think if you were in my place, you would run to a woman who might turn into a time bomb anytime and anywhere? I don't want to die that much. Gia 11 is quite sensible and will not be tempted by the little princess words. Confused. Okay, that's a lot of chatter. Once again, Suya was so unkind to this young man of similar age, whose face looked like a playing card, that she was so angry that her silver teeth almost broke. She comes from an imperial royal family and has received a lot of aristocratic education since she was a child. She is originally very approachable and does not like to lose her temper, which is the so-called happiness and anger are invisible. But she found that she really couldn't control her little daughter's temper when facing this young man from the Geo family on Earth. Could it be that the reason was that there was some possibility of marriage with him? No. Suya told herself in her heart that she wanted to be angry so much because this young man was too irritating. She had never seen anyone treat her like this in her life. As an imperial princess, her status is there. She will not be so angry no matter where she goes. Maybe she is right. Gia 11 is the only one in her life who does not take her status as an imperial princess seriously. How dare she make her peers so angry? Well, dear Mr. Gia 11, actually, I just have the chance to escape. This is the purpose of this transfer. If you want, I can let you go with me, but the price is that you continue to protect me. After a while, do you think this deal is okay? Suya finally held back her temper and made a condition. In fact, as an imperial princess, after she accidentally came to the civilization, the group of people who rarely knew her identity were simply more anxious than she was. They made many routes and made many preparations, both overtly and covertly. Unfortunately, either the plan was destroyed due to the war, or it was overturned because it was not safe enough. Her life involves a lot of human lives. If she dies in this small civilization, although the Empire's anger may not be able to deal with the enemy, it can definitely make this small civilization disappear easily. After all, it is rumored that the civilization belonged to the Empire in ancient times. It was only because of the enfeoffment issue that this place was enfeoffed to a certain minister, and this gradually developed into today's civilization. It is not unreasonable for the Empire to take it back. Therefore, they must prevent the imperial princess from being in danger here. Even if something goes wrong on the way back, at least they will not be held responsible. Is that so? I hope Her Royal Highness will not lie to me. Let's make the deal. But don't expect me to escape from the stellar powerhouse. If that method could still work, I would have left long ago. After thinking about it for a while, Gia 11 nodded in agreement without any hesitation. This is easy to understand. Although the danger of following the princess of the empire is greatly increased, the possibility of leaving is also greater. Gia 11's previous idea of escaping was to steal or rob a civilized warship or merchant ship, but even if that succeeded, what would happen after entering the universe? God knows how many alien warships there are in this starry sky. If he rashly went into the universe and found that he was surrounded by an army of enemies, he would probably be confused on the spot. And by following the princess's means of escape today, I'm afraid these problems will be much less, and those who help her escape will think of them well. Okay, I don't expect your tricks. The Geo family is very mysterious. Anyway, it's a pleasure to cooperate. Suya stretched out a finger as white and tender as an onion, which was the same procedure as the Empire's hook. Gia 11 thought for a while, then stretched out her index finger and pressed it against the little girl's index finger. This is considered a successful contract. Yeah. Gia-11, you have reached an agreement with me now. You must not go back on it. After Suya took the action, she seemed to let out a long breath. Gia-11 on the other side was helpless. This little princess of the empire is too happy too early. This method of making contracts is not popular on Earth. If she hooks up with Giazilla, maybe he will take it seriously. What does touching their index fingers mean? However, the two parties did put aside their conflicts because of this dialogue and began to cooperate. There are enemies blocking the front, the guard team in the car is going to fight. Puff. Not long after driving the convoy for more than 200 kilometers, we encountered our first problem. After Gia-11 heard the communication sound on the intercom, she habitually raised her firearm suddenly. Well, Gia-11, you don't have to fight. Just let them protect us. Suya said in surprise. What she was waiting for was Gia-11's somewhat strange response. These are my comrades in arms, princess. I have no reason not to help. Click. Gia-11 pushed open the door and walked out, and soon there was a fierce exchange of fire from the outside. Interesting in the car, Suya leaned out of the window, looking at the young man who deliberately showed only heaven-level strength while moving, her red lips curled up in an arc. She has nothing to worry about. She has witnessed the fact that Gia-11 has broken through to the starry sky level with her own eyes. Sure enough, the battle ended not long after. When Gia-11 was exhausted from work, she didn't even think about maintaining her appearance in front of the little princess, so she opened the door and entered the car, causing Suya to frown slightly. After watching him sit down carelessly, Suya finally said something that surprised even Gia-11. Gia-11, do you think you will be the second Gia-Yan of the Gia family on Earth? Huh? The second Gia-Yan. Gia-11, who had always ignored Suya's words, suddenly became more solemn when she heard such sharp questions. He thought for a while and finally sighed and shook his head. I can't be my grandfather. Your empire still doesn't understand enough about my Gia family. You can't imagine his height. TCH, you're just putting on a show, you're just a guy who couldn't even beat the venerable level back then. Suya was almost furious. Gia-11 didn't say a few words, either mocking herself or their empire. She simply didn't take their empire seriously, how could she be happy? Puff. But when these angry words were spoken, what he didn't expect was that Gia-11, who was originally calm and composed, suddenly took on the fighting momentum from before and grabbed the princess's slender white neck. With just one force, she would suffocate her with little actual combat ability to death. Suya, I am walking with you. I am just leaving with the help of your strength. This does not mean that I have accepted your command. In addition, the affairs of my Gia family are not yours to discuss. How strong is my grandfather? I believe the emperor of your empire probably knows better than me. You can ask him later, but I won't allow you to slander my grandfather again, do you hear me? Ahem, I heard it. After receiving Suya's almost suffocating response, Gia-11 coldly let go of her neck. Her Majesty, the imperial princess, was pinched so hard that she couldn't hold her breath. She sat back on the chair and coughed for a long time, and then her tears flowed down to the ground. I saw Yu Lian's look, which was extremely pitiful. Not to mention that she had never seen him before, she felt that the worst villain in the world was Gia-11 in front of her. It was a pity that she couldn't defeat him, otherwise she would have fought with him just now. Gia-11 showed with her actions that the symbol of the Gia family cannot be easily slandered by outsiders. But at the same time, he also brought the originally good relationship between the two parties to a freezing point. Gia-11 pinched the amulet hanging on her chest, mourning in her heart. Grandpa, why didn't you give the amulet more power? If it had more power, I wouldn't have to be angry with this arrogant little princess here. I would have borrowed the power of the amulet to travel through the subspace and left. Come on, this straight man competed so hard with his grandfather that he scared the girl to tears and thought she was the one being offended. If Suya knew that he thought this way, she might really have an explosive outlook on life and risk her life with him on the spot. She won't admit defeat until she fights for 100 rounds. The transfer this time was not slow. The luxury car with a speed of more than 300 km per hour drove for about an hour and a half before moving to another important location. What shocked and admired the entire team members was that when Jia-11, the strongest and most handsome among them, got out of the car of the so-called daughter of the senior official, he was able to follow the little girl closely. The little girl's words seemed to work well. After she whispered a few words to the senior official agreed to let Jia-11 stay by the girl's side and become her personal bodyguard. I'll go, 11, how did you do it? It's amazing. God, you're not going to stage a scene where the uncle seizes the little girl from a rich family, are you? That's awesome. Tell me, what happened in the car? How did you get the little girl to fall in love with you in just 1.5 hours? After Jia-11 said goodbye to Suya, and then walked to her comrades in the team who were about to offload their tasks and return to the normal combat sequence, the other 6 people in the entire team all admired Jia-11's ability to pick up girls. You know, this can make the military use their power, and even seem to have swept away the high-level people on the route. They are definitely not ordinary people. And Jia-11 was actually able to get the beautiful little daughter of this high-level executive in just over an hour. What kind of incredible ability is this to pick up girls? They are all ready to worship Jia-11 as a god, the god of picking up girls. Of course, if they knew that Jia-11 not only didn't pick up girls in the car, but almost squeezed her to death, they would probably knock over the altar they had built in their hearts. This is a straight man. Jia-11 was stunned for a moment, and then she realized what she was doing, with a light smile on her face. Haha, isn't this a very simple thing for me, 11? You don't have to be surprised. However, this family of high-ranking officials has taken a fancy to my fighting ability, and I'm afraid I will have to perform security missions next to them. There is no such thing as a feast that never ends. I, 11, am here to wish you all good luck in martial arts, please take care. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2476. 11, take care. Oh, take care. Handsome guy who is the master of picking up girls, take care, I will remember you forever. Several comrades were also stunned for a moment, and then they all felt relieved and accepted Jia-11's transfer. There's nothing you can do if you don't accept it. This is the normal state of ordinary soldiers on the battlefield. Even if the 6 of them fought bloody battles together today, shared joys and sorrows together, and faced endless powerful enemies, tomorrow they might be forced to do so even if they are issued with a piece of paper. Separate. The duty of a soldier is to accept orders. To be honest, Jia-11 was very into this kind of comrade in arms game, and he almost couldn't break up with his comrades in arms. Fortunately, reason still prevailed. After saying goodbye to these friends who had been through life and death, Jia-11 walked to Suya's side. Jia-11, it seems that you have gained a few friends on this planet. Yes, but these friends are likely to die in the next war, but I won't be sad, because this is who I know. Suya frowned, she didn't understand Jia-11's words. If you are a friend, shouldn't you care about the life and death of your friends? How could he so easily say something that might kill them? Maybe it's a cultural difference. In short, Jia-11 left the friends she made for the first time in this civilization, and then once again came together with the imperial princess who had sailed to many places in the universe. Didn't you say before that you are ready to see what our empire wants to do? Now you will soon see what our empire is preparing to do. In fact, the development of our empire over the years is really not to compete with your Earth. What, you have the giant Mosquito clan behind you. Unless our empire can also have a powerful race as its backer, there is no point in fighting with your Earth. Do you understand? We are only increasing the strength of the entire civilization, and even the entire Orion arm. What the Earth cannot do, our empire is just ready to take over. She and Suya entered an underground facility and took the elevator down hundreds of floors. In short, during this process, it was just the two of them. Suya told Jia 11 the answer that Jia 11 wanted to know before. Is it? Jia 11 nodded, non-committal. He generally understood what the Empire was doing. But doing these reasonable things will definitely reduce the current sense of the Earth's presence in the Orion arm, because the Empire suppresses all aspects. Even if the Earth is still the chairman of the Orion Arm Alliance, it is still the financial mainstay of the Orion Arm Alliance. But the Empire has used its unbelievable background to gradually take away the dominance of any item from the Earth. This is the hard power of the Earth, and we can't blame others. But it is also impossible for the Earth to hand over all its benefits without struggling at all, and then become an ordinary low-level civilization that has just stepped out of its home planet. Jia 11, believe me, our empire is not the enemy of the Earth. I don't know how powerful the enemy's attack will be this time, but even if there are only 2 or 3 star levels, our empire will be in dire straits, so stop being hostile to the empire. Okay, we Orion Arm are so weak around us, shouldn't now be the time for us to join hands? Suya and Jia 11's intelligence was obviously lagging behind. They didn't know yet that the enemy forces entering the Orion Arm had infiltrated from several aspects. The Empire might only have 2 or 3 star levels, but from other aspects, it also has 2 or 3 star levels. In other words, this will be a huge battle comparable to the last time Orion Arm was besieged. Jia 11 doesn't know this, so his first concern is the Empire, and he knows very well that the current Orion Arm is no longer the original Orion Arm. Decades have passed since the last war, and the Orion Arm Alliance has also been established. Over the past few decades, the ability used to deal with stellar or external armies during the original war has seemed to have shrunk over the years. However, every civilization has conducted more systematic and professional research and improvements on this. As long as it is a little bit in time, the Orion Arm will burst out with much stronger combat effectiveness than before. What's more, his grandfather Jia Yan's Yin Yang Dao has long been spread in all civilizations, including the Orion Arm in the Empire. It is said that this may be the cultivation technique of the giant Mosquito clan. It has an extremely exaggerated increase in combat power and has many sages. Super beings, they even think that as long as they and others join forces, they can fight against a stellar class. Of course, this is just a guess. Whether it is true or not depends on the actual results. Suya, whether I believe you or not is secondary. There are indeed things more important than the internal relations within the Orion Arm. Let us do it. But, many of your empire's actions cannot cross the line. This is what the reason for this trip to the empire. Although I am still young, as long as I investigate something, it may still affect the relationship between your country and our Earth Alliance, so I hope I will not come to a bad conclusion. The conclusion. Jia 11 said calmly, not listening to Suya's one-sided remarks. Snort. The girl snorted coldly, but the young man beside her was unmoved. This is a silent confrontation between two countries, even two juniors at the highest level of a somewhat hostile civilization. To say it is exciting is not that exaggerated, but there are still games and calculations from time to time. What's even better is that they are both here together now. Civilizations that have nothing to do with their respective parent civilizations are in semi-disgrace. In other words, their confrontation is evenly matched, and no one knows how they will develop in the future. And neither of them knew that the story that happened between them had been completely overheard by a figure who was rushing towards them at a very fast speed. This is a towering figure. His body is covered with petrified hard lumps, and his body is 10 kilometers high. At least in this area, he has almost the aura of the top strong man. In addition, under this aura, this stone man vaguely has some kind of stronger and more obscure power exuding. This power is so strong that it is even more terrifying than the power he carries. How many times? That's right, he is the stone man clone that Jia Yan once used in the central star field of the Milky Way. In the end, he was still worried about the junior. Although his real body could not come, he had too many clones. With the current clones and the combat power of various positive and negative power weapons, he believed that even if a domain lord came, this Gu may be the strongest clone today, and he may be able to deal with it. So by coincidence, he saw such a confrontation between juniors that made Jia Yan very interesting. So you're not trying to pick up girls? This kid came to the border area to observe the Empire, because recently the Empire is threatening the status of the Earth? Haha. After hearing the cause and effect, Jia Yan had to sigh. Sometimes, the younger children always grow up without knowing it. The 13 or 14-year-old boy who had to be picked up by his family after school, only a few years ago, dares to leave the Earth alone and travel hundreds of light years away to see if the Empire has made any rash moves on the Earth. It's a pity that wisdom is used in the wrong place. It's true that this kid is a big kid, but he never thought that this universe is a universe of strong people. No matter how the Empire jumps, but with me behind the Earth, he can't jump. By the way, this kid is a star in the sky. Super strength, just considering the matter between two civilizations, it is really overestimating one's abilities. But the talent is really good. The last time I saw him, he was at the peak of heaven level. Jia Yan's requirements for the talents of his juniors have been much lowered. If Xiao, the little apprentice in the North Star, is still at the beginning of seeing Kong when she is 18 years old, Jia Yan might just kick her out of the door, but if the target is replaced by the grandson of the Jia family on this side of the Earth, then turned into a compliment. There's nothing I can do about it, he's got a double standard. Jia Yan is already considering whether to take his grandson, and daughter with him in the future to teach them how to practice for a period of time. I feel like this is possible. He just thought of the grandson's cleverness in the wrong place, and thought of raising his grandson and daughter in the future. After all, his son Jiarong had conflicts with him because he had no father's love, and things are not going well now. He doesn't want to. If there is any estrangement between you and your family, you should correct this in yourself. Of course, Jia Yan was not thoughtful enough and never thought about whether his grandson and daughter would refuse. I never thought about whether it would be awkward for my grandson to call his daughter with an 18-year-old son and a 4 or 5-year-old daughter. At this point, Jia Yan, who used to have a bright mind, has become like an elm-headed person who doesn't understand the world. After observing for a while, he also found that his grandson was extremely nervous because he felt that the newly replenished amulet was no longer effective. This is good and can train the juniors. Jia Yan casually asked his clone to shoot a burst of power onto Jia 11's amulet, replenishing the energy to the previous level, but this time he deliberately did not let his grandson sense it, so that he would not think that he had the protection of his grandfather and run away. Go out and have fun. Okay, this can be considered a reinforcement, right? Okay, since he probably doesn't have any big problems, I'll go out for a walk and check the situation. Fortunately, I brought someone with a different image from Jia Yan when I came. There won't be anything out of the ordinary for Earthlings clones to appear in this area. Jia Yan observed the situation of his grandson and the little girl of the imperial princess for a moment, knowing that they would not have any problems for the time being, so he decided to send another clone to look around to see the situation. After all, his clones are here, so how can it be said without observing the battle situation and losses? Of course, Jia Yan is not prepared to take action. Even for his grandson, he is not prepared to help as long as it is not a big problem like death. Children need to be trained, right? In his current state, he still seems to be too weak and too immature to care about everything when he was weak. And it's time for the Orion arm to need some stimulation, because his protection is not long-lasting, and even the Geo family is the same. He is just 100 years old now, and the Geo family are all relatives, but if it takes 300 years, 500 years, even 1000 years, 2000 years later? Maybe he can live for a long time, but to be honest, the Geo family's relatives have a long lifespan. They are not strong enough and will definitely be ahead of Jia Yan in the future. When all his relatives are gone, even Jia Yan himself doesn't know the answer to whether he, Jia Yan, will still protect the Geo family. As a person's age increases, his experience increases, and his vision changes, his thoughts will also change. Just like now, the tragedy experienced by Orion Arm is not much worse than when a powerful enemy attacked. But that time when Jia Yan fought desperately, the mentality of protecting the entire Orion Arm among the major civilizations has changed. Instead, he will sit back and watch the casualties for a period of time, because excessive protection will make the Orion Arm, including the Earth, less able to compete with races in the universe in the future. As for whether it will get out of hand and let the situation turn into a real tragedy, even destroying the Orion Arm and the Earth? Don't worry, there are giant mosquitoes, no surprises. Jia Yan's arrogant strength here is the source of his confidence. He can even walk sideways in a certain posture in the black hole area. He is no longer the original Wuxia Amen. This war will end whenever he wants it to end. So don't rush, don't worry, just take a look and see what kind of energy the Orion Arm, which has received its own training at an early stage and has a large group of Yin-Yang Dao practitioners, can burst out. Call. Tired? Quite tired. 2 days have passed since entering the underground bunker. During the past 2 days, Jia 11 seemed to be a tireless tool man, constantly using the facilities of this underground bunker to perform exercises that squeezed the limits. His performance not only surprised the trainer, but even himself. Is this the same person who used to in the Earth's environment, who was surprisingly lazy and didn't want to practice at all? That's right, regardless of Jia 11's current strength, it can be said that he is the first person of the same age on the Earth, but his excellence is entirely due to his own genes. He has his father's perfect genes and the creatures from his grandmother's Satsuma shrine. The imperial reception technique adjusted his genetic inheritance, and more importantly, he had a trace of the giant mosquito gene. Even if it was only the giant mosquito gene from a less powerful period, it was enough for him to become extremely outstanding under several powerful genetics. He didn't work too hard to cultivate to the current starry sky level. Compared with the little Princess Suya who worked extremely hard to cultivate with all the resources of the empire, she was almost a level higher. But Jia 11, who doesn't like to practice so much, has surprisingly shown a strong will to practice in the past 2 days. When he exercises, he has a kind of crazy energy, so crazy that even he is surprised. Huck-it, 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 why does it feel so good to be exhausted? Lying outside the machine made for the strong, sweating profusely, Jia 11 seemed to know for the first time what it felt like to go all out. Very cool, very happy. He seemed to see a little mosquito in his genes, training himself crazily again and not giving up even when his body suffered huge backlash. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website.